A woman recalls that in her past life, she was a normal, exhausted office lady working at a call center, but now she has been reborn as Isabella Ali Rottenstein, the third daughter of a duke, with all her memories intact. She remembers being obsessed with a character from the Otome game, Love Magical. The character was a minor mob character named Ershkuin, whose fluffy hair, thin eyes, and resemblance to a sheep were completely her type. Even though Ershkuin was not one of the game's main love interests, she eagerly spent a great deal of money on the game for him. Her favorite pastime was playing the game's gacha every day, celebrating whenever she received an SSR version of Ershkuin. She was thrilled to see an in-game notification that official Love Magical merchandise was being launched. To make sure she got some, she rode a train for an hour to reach an anime shop. Inside the shop, other fans excitedly discussed which of the main love interests' merchandise they were going to purchase. She was crushed when she realized the merchandise was only for the main love interest characters. Dejected that there was no merchandise for Ershkuin, she walked home in disappointment. Due to the shock of the news and being malnourished, she lost her footing on a staircase. She fell down the stairs, bringing her short life to a sudden end. Her very last memory from that life was of kind passers-by attempting to help her. She then found herself in this new world, where life was normal until she remembered her past. She came to the startling realization that she had been reincarnated as the Villainous from Love Magical, a character known for being the heroine's bully. In the game, the Villainous's role was to torment the heroine and use any means necessary to make all the attractive men her own. Her character's motto was to commit any evil deed to get away with her schemes, viewing everyone as an expendable pawn and even stealing lovers by force. The protagonist reflects that the Villainous was a character designed to be hated, and she has no desire to act that way in this new life. As she considers her situation, she spots a familiar-looking boy in front of her mansion. It is the very person she adored in her past life, standing right before her eyes. She stares, awestruck, at the boy who is the spitting image of her beloved Ershkuin. She instantly recognizes him as her destined lover. She tries to calm herself down as the boy turns to her and asks what she's looking at. A tense silence hangs in the air as she remains frozen, unable to speak. She manages a quiet, still completely flustered by his presence. Her heart pounds wildly in her chest as she gazes upon him. The boy breaks the silence by innocently asking if she is looking at ants on the ground. She is completely overwhelmed by his cuteness and internally thanks the heavens for this blessed encounter. Deciding that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, she resolves to seize the moment. She clenches her fists, steeling her resolve to ask him a very important question. With all her courage, she blurts out a proposal, asking him to please marry her. The boy looks momentarily stunned by her declaration, but then calmly replies, "Sure." She clarifies that he can be her bride when they grow up, and he takes her hands in his. Feeling she has achieved true happiness at only 6 years of age, she tells him there is no going back on his promise. She joyfully exclaims that she is getting married, her wish fulfilled. Filled with purpose, she begins running, leading him along. She vows to never break her word or miss her destiny, though a flicker of concern about his non-resistant nature crosses her mind. He calls out to get her attention, and she turns back to him with a happy, yes. He asks where they are going, prompting her to properly introduce herself as Isabella, the third daughter of Duke Rottenstein, and declare that they are going to see her parents. She melts at his surprised expression, noting he still keeps his eyes closed, when a voice announces the arrival of the Duke. The boy then introduces himself as Schneever, the second son of the Schneever Company. Isabella is ecstatic to hear his family name, confirming his identity from the game. She daydreams about becoming Isabella Ali Schneever, but raises a valid point, questioning if a duke's daughter would even be permitted to marry into a merchant family. The social reality of their situation makes her sweat, realizing it's a significant obstacle. Then thoughtfully suggests that if they can't get permission, they could always run away together. She is overjoyed at the thought of eloping but quickly remembers her larger plan and tells him to be at ease. She reassures him that everything will be fine, explaining that because she speedran the game so many times in her past life, she knows the entire plot perfectly. Confident that her family will act according to the game's logic, she tells to leave everything to her, as she can strong-arm the marriage into working. She recalls her family's background. Her father, the Duke, is also the Prime Minister, and her mother is the King's younger sister, and they married for true love. The Duke and his wife have 5 children, 2 sons and 3 daughters, with Isabella being the youngest of them all. Her eldest sister is the bride of the neighboring country's crown prince, another union born of true love. Her eldest brother is a member of the Order of Mages and is engaged to the daughter of the Minister of Mages. Her second oldest brother is a member of the Order of Imperial Knights and is engaged to the daughter of the Order's head. Her second sister is still in school but is already engaged to a count from the borderlands. The connections formed by these marriages mean that the Rottenstein family possesses an immense, almost dangerous, amount of political power. She remembers the game's plot, where the original Isabella used this power to force an engagement with the second prince, only for the heroine to capture his heart, leading Isabella to bully her relentlessly. Isabella's evil deeds were eventually exposed, her engagement was annulled, and her family was demoted for attempted sabotage, with the primary criticism being that the engagement concentrated too much political power in one family. This recollection leads her to a crucial insight about her own situation. She reasons that if she, a duke's daughter, marries a commoner like a merchant's son, the balance of political power will be restored. Therefore, by avoiding an engagement with the prince, she will have no reason to bully the heroine, which means she can escape her execution and achieve a happy ending with the person she truly loves. Lost in her thoughts of a happy, lovey-dovey life, she is brought back to reality when Ursh calls her by her first name, Isabella. She is overcome with bliss at hearing him say her name, while he admits that he doesn't fully understand her plan but will leave it to her. She grabs him enthusiastically and vows to make him happy, and he gently replies that it should be his line. Certain that her plan for success is perfect, she runs toward the mansion, calling out for her mother and father. She bursts into the room where her family is gathered and declares that she has decided on an urgent matter she must discuss with them. Holding Ursh's hand up for all to see, she proudly announces that she is going to marry this boy. Her mother and father stare back at her, their faces blank with shock. Her mother begins giving a running commentary on the scene, noting Isabella's forceful, frontal assault, and the Duke's stunned inability to respond. Isabella asks her mother to stop giving a play-by-play just as her father begins to faint. Her mother calmly announces that Isabella's dad has fainted, and everyone rushes to call a physician. Ursh watches the scene unfold and observes that it looks like the Duke hit his head when he fell. Isabella apologizes to Ursh for causing him to worry over her father's dramatic reaction. Ursh gently reminds her that he still needs her father's blessing to marry her, which Isabella internally celebrates as further proof that he is serious about their future. He then earnestly says that if they don't get his approval, they will just run away together, proving he was serious about eloping. The two begin happily planning their potential life on the run, suggesting they could peddle wares together, save their allowances, and study herbs. When Ursh says he thinks he can synthesize herbs, Isabella is momentarily concerned that he may only have theoretical knowledge without any real practice. Their planning is suddenly cut short by the arrival of a man who interrupts them. The man, who resembles an older Ursh, is crawling on the floor as if imitating a newborn fawn, looking distressed. Isabella recognizes the man as Urshkuen's father. She greets him with a curtsy, respectfully addressing him as her future father-in-law, leaving the man utterly bewildered. The man introduces himself as Nathan Schneever, Ursh's father, and thanks Isabella for the dresses her family provided before asking to speak with his son privately. As Ursh goes to speak with his father, Isabella realizes that convincing her own father isn't enough. She needs the Schneevers' approval as well. She feels this is the happiest moment of her 6 years of life, already feeling and talking like a married couple with Ursh. Watching him, she feels a sense of peace and certainty that she will be with him from now on. She finds his warm, smiling face to be a healing presence and feels she could spend a lifetime just like this. The sight of Ursh's serene smile fills the frame, reflecting her inner peace. She makes a silent, heartfelt wish that she and him will be allowed to find happiness together. Her journey to secure her future with the boy she loves has just begun. A young man considers himself just a normal kid, living a completely normal life with a normal family. He is Ursh Schneever, and he sits in gloom, wondering how everything happened. As he wipes away tears, he thinks about how he knew why someone was upset, and how that person had become his treasure. A memory surfaces of a cheerful young girl leading a younger Ursh through a sunlit field. He begins to narrate his story, which started when his mother experienced a difficult childbirth with his younger brother. The ordeal left his mother bedridden and struggling with her postpartum recovery. With his youngest brother attended by wet nurses and his eldest brother at school, his father took Ursh on business trips so he wouldn't be alone. Ursh found the trips terribly boring, preferring to stay home rather than just watch the carriage to avoid the children of nobles. Those children would assault him and make fun of him for being a commoner. The constant bullying over his thin eyes and messy hair caused him to develop a hatred for his own appearance. As his family's company grew, some nobles began to call them Fafnir's kin, which was the source of some of the bullying. Fafnir was a term for those obsessed with gold, and as the Schneever company was derided for its wealth, Ursh resolved to protect his treasure like the dragon of legend. His father then brought him to the estate of Duke Rothenstein, a family whose distinction was second only to the royals. The Duke had summoned his father to assist in purchasing a birthday gift for the Duke's eldest daughter. Ursh found it obnoxious that this daughter's engagement to a foreign crown prince gave the Rothenstein family immense political influence. He was certain they would be even nastier and more arrogant than any of the nobles he had met before. Because of this, he had resolved hours earlier that he would not leave the carriage for any reason. He began to wonder how long the Duke and Duchess would shop, feeling a bad premonition when he saw 3 carts prepared for them. He was watching a line of ants, finding them amusingly similar to his family's employees, when a voice suddenly called out to him. He turned to see a young, beautifully dressed girl asking him what he was looking at. Her beauty immediately captivated him. Flustered, he tried to recall what he was looking at before her arrival and finally managed to stammer out that he was watching ants. He instantly regretted phrasing it as a question, worried the pretty girl would think him strange. He watched her as she stood for a moment with a questioning look. Then, her face broke into a wide, happy smile. Completely smitten by how cute she was, he was left stunned when she suddenly asked him to marry her. The proposal left him utterly bewildered, unable to comprehend why she would ask him of all people. He questioned her choice, reminding himself that he was nothing more than one of the despised Fafnir's kin. The idea of such a wonderful person proposing to someone like him rendered him speechless. As he looked at her radiant, happy face, he thought he could die happy if he could just stay by her side forever. He felt certain he would never again meet anyone who would look at him with such bright, glittering eyes. He remembered the other meaning of Fafnir's kin, an obsessive nature that would stop at nothing to obtain one's treasure, be it a person, thing, or deed. With that resolve, he knew then that he would make her his treasure. He accepted her proposal, vowing to do anything to protect her smile, even if it meant conquering the world for her. He joyfully told her that she would be his bride when they grew up, and that she couldn't take it back. He then made a solemn promise that he would never let her go. In the present, an older Ursh reflects that this is how their story began. He smiles at the memory of finding his one and only treasure. His father's voice cuts through his reverie, stating bluntly that while he knows Ursh's mind is made up, there must be another option. He sighs, acknowledging they will have to devise a plan, particularly since they still need to discuss the matter with Ursh's mother. The path forward was uncertain. Ursh knew his father was right, as any matter involving her children could become complicated with his mother. Elsewhere, the determined footsteps of a young girl echoed. Isabella paced, wondering how best to pass the time while she waited for Ursh. Her eyes fell upon the Schneever company employees hard at work. She decided that in order to win over Ursh's father, she needed to learn his preferences and began preparing her strategy. She watched the workers complain about the hassle of moving large items into the warehouses. Seeing their struggle, she thought how much easier it would be if they could only use the closet. She wistfully considered how convenient an item box like the closet from her old game would be, if only she knew how to activate it. As a joke, she struck a pose and shouted the activation command, "Closet, open!" Incredibly, a game-like interface materialized before her, a phenomenon only she could see, leaving her to marvel at the fantasy world. She discovered she could manage it with her thoughts and was shocked to find it was filled with all the items she had collected in the game. She nostalgically recognized items she had saved up for by cutting back on her food budget. Her jaw dropped when she saw her inventory included 99,999 of each type of recovery potion. An idea sparked that she could sell these, but she was concerned to find that her painstakingly collected magic eyes of the 7 deadly sins were missing. This was a set of unannounced SSS rank items that were nearly impossible to acquire due to an absurdly low drop rate. Yet she had managed to complete the set by leveraging the power of pay-to-win mechanics. She decided it was for the best, as rolling eyeballs would be creepy, and her concern shifted to the food items that had been stored for 6 years. She decided to test the storage's properties by taking out a giant frog toasted sandwich. It appeared perfectly fresh and warm, making her theorize that the closet used time-based magic, not just spatial storage. Seeing as time seemed to stop for its contents, she bet it involved time manipulation and tested putting an item back in. To see if it worked on new items, she reached for a nearby vase, startling a maid who asked what was wrong. Isabella turned to a company worker and cheerfully offered to help him carry the merchandise. The worker was aghast, insisting that a lady like her could not be asked to carry such heavy cargo. Undeterred, she told him not to worry and placed her hand upon a large dresser. The dresser vanished into thin air, shocking the workers into silence as Isabella realized her actions might cause them to worry about their goods. She tried to reassure them that everything was fine, but her demonstration only elicited a cry of utter shock from the workers. The commotion drew the attention of a young Ursh, who was called over by a small boy referring to him as President. Ursh arrived asking about the ruckus, and Isabella explained she was using her space-time magic to help, leaving him to wonder what that was. She attempted to describe it as a bubble that stores objects and preserves their quality. With a dramatic flourish, she declared, "Just like that." Ursh was instantly impressed, calling her amazing, which earned him a sharp stare from his father. His father noted that such magic would be the envy of all merchants and asked how she retrieved the items. As she explained her complete control over it, they were interrupted by an urgent summons for the Madam and Master. A servant rushed in, telling Lady Isabella she was needed immediately. Before she could leave, Ursh's father asked if he could confirm one more thing, and she agreed. He asked if the items followed her, allowing retrieval anywhere, and she confirmed it, leaving him to ponder the mechanics of such a mobile, quality-preserving magic. Isabella struggled to find a simple way to explain the quality preservation, feeling the example of a hot sandwich was too bizarre. A moment of inspiration struck her, and she decided to demonstrate with something more normal, summoning both an iced and a hot lemonade. She offered a cup to Ursh's father, explaining that it was a recovery item that wouldn't spoil because time had stopped for it. As he took the cup, his eyes widened with a sudden, profound understanding. He excitedly declared that her magic made mass transport of perishable food possible and demanded to know where she had learned it. Isabella lied, claiming the ability came with maturity, though she knew she had just acquired it, and he accepted it must be a rare skill. He then complimented the cup and the drink's aroma, asking where she got them and sending her into a panic since, in the game, Ursh had been the one to give them to her. She quickly changed the subject back to loading the cargo, and he agreed. The implications of her ability began to settle in. Inside the estate, Ursh's father sampled the drink and declared it delicious. He and Ursh agreed it would sell well, but Ursh noted the high cost, which confused Isabella. When asked, Ursh flawlessly listed the ingredients, including lemons, sugar, salt, and D-rank honeybee monster honey. His father noted the high price of honeybee honey, musing that even with normal honey as a substitute, the cost would be significant, making Isabella wonder about the monster ingredient. Ursh explained that the monster honey had curative properties that vastly increased its value, which prompted Isabella to question how he knew such a specific detail. She then remembered his father explaining that Ursh possessed the innate skill of appraisal, a secret he was sharing with his son's bride-to-be. It all clicked into place. She now understood his knowledge of ingredients and his future enrollment in the Magic Academy's alchemy department. His in-game role as a seller of magical items at the academy suddenly made perfect sense. She processed this revelation, connecting the dots of his past and future. But as she thought more about it, a troubling question about Ursh began to form in her mind. Recalling he had no fixed stall in the game but wandered around to sell his creations, she was struck with the horrifying thought that he might have been an unlicensed, black market dealer. A young blonde-haired girl sits with a troubled expression, reading a letter while thinking of a smiling boy. The arrival of Mr. Schneever, his son, and Bella is announced, and they apologize for their tardiness. A seated man apologizes for the scene while a woman laughingly claims he wept when Bella introduced her fiancé, a statement he immediately denies. The man turns his attention to Bella, raising the topic of her declaration to marry a commoner and questioning if she grasps the consequences. He warns her that more suitable partners will appear and she may regret her choice, but she acknowledges this while affirming she has no interest in marrying anyone but the boy, Ursh. She passionately insists that it must be Urshkuin, declaring that their feelings have crossed worlds and she will refuse any other marriage prospect. Ursh, speaking on behalf of his family, states there is no reason to refuse her request, a decision then communicated to Mr. Schneever. Mr. Schneever voices his opinion that Bella would be better matched with a more prestigious family, yet he concedes the final decision to them. The boys' family tradition is to marry for true love, and they feel it would be a great pity for Bella to be the sole exception. The man confirms with 6-year-old Bella that she is satisfied with the arrangement to name Ursh a betrothal candidate, while Mr. Schneever expresses thanks that his son is being given a chance. Bella shows her displeasure with the arrangement by puffing out her cheeks. She then loudly protests the decision. The girl lets out a sigh of disappointment. She resigns herself to the situation, lamenting that it is only a provisional engagement but recognizing it is better than her father's complete opposition. She contemplates the future, knowing their engagement becomes official in 9 years when they turn 15, the same time the game's story starts, and to marry Ursh, she must complete 3 years of school, unlike the original Isabella who only attended for 1. With the goal of avoiding a bad end flag, she resolves to work hard and avoid the game's heroine during her first year at the academy, prompting a review of the game's plot. She recalls that Love Magical was an otome game focused on building affection with various handsome male characters. The game's setting was the Rosereel Kingdom, a world of magic, specifically within the Rosereel National Magic Academy for those with sufficient magical ability. This academy featured a 3-year curriculum split into 5 distinct departments: Mage, Magic, Magic Soldier, Alchemy, and Holy Magic. The story began during the first year and introduced 3 love interests: Christopher the Prince, Torin the Mage's son, and Brian the Knight's son, along with the Villainous and the heroine, who was an illegitimate Viscount's daughter. She deduces that she is most likely to encounter Christopher first, since the original Isabella fell for him at first sight and forced an engagement, making a future meeting certain. She briefly wonders why she has not already met him, given that he is her cousin and her family possesses significant political influence. Her thoughts shift to Geiss, her eldest brother's brother-in-law, whom the original Isabella tried to sabotage due to her hatred of commoners, a prejudice the current Isabella no longer shares. Finally, she considers Brian, recalling that they rarely interact in the game's story, so she should remain safe if she simply keeps her distance. She formulates a plan to avoid the heroine and the love interests for the next few years, enjoy her time with Urshkuin, and eventually join him in the alchemy department to become an inseparable couple. Her initial optimism that this path will be easy is undercut by the memory that the original Villainous was ousted during her very first year in the game. Deciding not to worry about the future, she resolves to ask Urshkuin on a date, but first decides to check her inventory or closet. She gazes thoughtfully at the contents of her inventory screen. She discovers a disturbingly large number of items, including 8 identical mythical Medusa head shields, which she deems abnormal and not necessarily a good thing. It dawns on her that these powerful items were likely also created by Urshkuin, a fact she finds hard to fully process. The image of Urshkuin wielding such incredible creations fills her with awe at his power. Musing that these items, which were cheap in her previous world, would be incredibly valuable here, she decides she cannot throw them away and must use them secretly. Her mind turns to a specific game event, the Monster Subjugation Expedition class trip. She also remembers that for nobles, participation in such an event required permission from a guardian. The last thing she decides to check is her character status. As the status window manifests before her, she reacts with a gasp of surprise. Her shock deepens as she discovers the magic eyes of the 7 deadly sins, listed as a special skill, leading her to question her own level. She realizes her reincarnation brought not only items but also all the experience points she had accumulated by playing minigames to financially support Urshkuin's character. She remembers how torturous it was to endure the cheesy dialogue from the game's pretty boys. It had felt like cheating on Urshkuin, so she had avoided it by tackling brutally difficult puzzles and slaying massive monsters instead. The consequence of her actions is that she, a mere 6-year-old, now possesses the skills of a duke's daughter at level 99. While part of her is curious to see what a level 99 duke's daughter can do, she admits she has no idea how to use either that skill or the magic eyes. Since the skills might differ from the game, she resolves to start figuring out how to activate them, wishing for an appraisal skill like Urshkuin's to help her in the alchemy department. Time jumps forward, and 2 months have now passed since her last meeting with Urshkuin. She has not seen him at all in that time, inwardly cursing her father for keeping them apart despite their provisional engagement, and though they can exchange letters, she suffers from his absence. To distract herself during their separation, she focuses on testing her skills, starting with the magic eyes of the 7 deadly sins. The first eye, Superbia, Pride, functions as clairvoyance, while she has avoided testing Ira, Wrath, for fear of it being a dangerous laser beam attack. Gula, Gluttony, proves to be an inventory skill, allowing her to collect any object in her sight, which would have been immensely useful in the game. Luxuria, Lust, grants her X-ray vision, which she combines with a presence obfuscation skill to secretly observe that her maid is wearing white underwear. Avaricia, greed, works as an appraisal skill similar to Urshkuin's, but she cannot activate invidia, envy, or aestia, sloth, suspecting they require specific conditions. Her initial excitement over the appraisal skill turns to depression after she uses it on people around her, starting with the young housemaid. The appraisal of the 17-year-old maid, Marie Mason, reveals a character at level 4 with only 5/10 HP and a maid skill at a stagnant level 1 despite nearly 3 years of diligent work. She contrasts the maid's average HP with her own 999 HP, which sparks a sudden fear of Urshkuin appraising her. The thought of him discovering her monstrous stats and thinking of her as a gorilla is so mortifying that she prays he never appraises her, imagining she would have to hide in shame for 5 years. With this powerful and strange skill set, another possibility enters her mind. She considers the idea of becoming a ninja. She tests her presence obfuscation skill and finds it is so effective that she can make noise right next to the maid without being detected. Deciding that playing ninja could be great fun, she starts by following the maid, Marie, for the day. This newfound excitement, however, is short-lived. Eavesdropping from a hidden spot, she witnesses Marie passionately confessing her genuine feelings to an older man named Master Sean. Master Sean gently dismisses Marie's confession, questioning why she would choose an old man like him. He advises her to find a man her own age, but Marie tearfully insists that she wants nothing more than to be by his side, no matter how brief their time together might be. She cries that she wants no one else but him. From her perch, Isabella recognizes that the emotional situation unfolding below is delicate. The atmosphere is so charged that she feels she cannot reveal herself, as even her perfect presence obfuscation would not prevent her from ruining the moment. Descending now would shatter the poignant mood entirely. Trapped by the scene, she resolves to remain still and become one with the ceiling, a decision complicated by an increasingly urgent need to use the restroom. She internally cheers for Marie, recognizing the maid's deep conviction, and silently urges Sean to accept her wholehearted feelings. While she believes Sean must understand the depth of Marie's emotions, her own pressing need for a toilet begins to overshadow the romantic drama. Despite her own physical discomfort, she knows she cannot simply drop down and intervene. She concludes that she has no choice but to let the situation play out and continue to watch them quietly. Yet, in her current predicament, there remains one very significant problem. Her most desperate thought is wondering when on earth she will finally be able to go to the bathroom. A girl in a voluminous dress with a large bow on the back takes deliberate steps across a path. A narrator reveals it has been 3 days since Marie-chan's confession, and the girl, using a skill called presence obfuscation, is now following the spaced-out maid. The girl's internal monologue confirms her purpose. She has been following Marie-chan. The scene flashes to a moment of confrontation, with the protagonist looking shocked as Marie is accosted by another young man. The narrative clarifies that 30 minutes after an unresolved lover's quarrel with Sean, Marie had waited for the coast to clear before sprinting through the mansion toward the toilet. Her desperate, full-speed dash was so powerful that the resulting wind pressure shattered 3 glass panes in the hallway she passed through. The protagonist, Isabella, reflects that she is in no position to judge, as her own relationship with a boy named Urshkuin has seen no progress, leaving her to wonder what he truly thinks of her. She resolves to use her ninja espionage power to sneak out and show Ursh her charms, dreaming of a mutual marriage of love, complete with church bells and a wedding. As she begins her trot, a sudden realization dawns on her, bringing the plan to a halt. She has no idea where Urshkuin actually lives. Devising a new strategy, she recalls having a letter sent to Ursh the previous night and decides she will simply tail the messenger to discover his home address. Now tailing Marie through a busy street, the narrator notes the maid's dangerously slow and distracted pace, a fact that does not go unnoticed by concerned townspeople or another observing maid. Isabella, unaccustomed to seeing the city on foot, finds the environment much more lively and hectic than when viewed from inside a carriage. It is a good kind of hectic, however, a liveliness she loves as she takes in the sights of a baker with fresh bread and a farmer with his chickens. As she observes her surroundings, she turns and comes face to face with a smiling Ursh. Startled, she asks how long he has been standing there, and he cheerfully replies that it has been about 20 minutes. Isabella is shocked, questioning why her presence obfuscation skill failed, but Ursh explains it is working perfectly, as no one else has noticed a noble girl in a frilly dress wandering the town. He reveals his own special skill allows him to blend in with others so well that he can eat meals with their families unnoticed, and he had activated both sense presence and sense magic to ensure a certain duke's daughter was not kidnapped. As Isabella mutters about her love not being strong enough and how she never perceived him, Ursh notes her muttering, and an onlooker compares his ability to that of a Nurarahayan. He tells her not to be sad, explaining that he found her so quickly because he can always easily locate his possessions. Her heart thumps at the word, and she excitedly wonders if being called his possession means he wants her as his bride. The thought is cut short by the sudden, panicked realization that she has lost sight of Marie, a fact Ursh confirms by pointing out the maid has left. Ursh suggests Marie will likely realize her mistake and return, but seeing Isabella's worry, he offers to help her search and gently takes her hand. While thrilled to be holding his hand, Isabella is startled when he calls her name and asks about an object she is carrying, causing her to yelp in surprise. He then questions her plan, pointing out that since she was following Marie in secret, she would be unable to speak to her or help her even if the maid found herself in danger. The realization strikes Isabella with full force. Ursh is right, she had snuck out of the mansion with no way to intervene, and now that she has met up with him, there is no real reason to continue her pursuit. Despite this logic, she knows she would regret it if Marie got hurt, and after she explains this, Ursh laughs it off, saying they will handle any problems as they come and agrees to accompany her. The two walk hand in hand down the road, with Ursh periodically stopping to ask the local townspeople for information. Isabella feels guilty for taking up so much of his time but also observes that as the son of the powerful Schneever company, he has many acquaintances and a good relationship with the locals. Deciding to take matters into her own hands, she resolves that it is time to use her magic eyes. She activates two abilities at once, Superbia for distant sight and Luxuria for penetration, which allows her to see through solid objects, making people appear to float where buildings once stood. As she adjusts the clairvoyant power to her sense of distance, she feels a wave of relief that the ability is selective, sparing her from having to see all the passers-by in the nude. With buildings and other obstacles removed from her sight, she quickly spots Marie and knows she must inform Ursh immediately. She grows frustrated, trying to figure out how she can possibly explain that she found Marie 2 blocks ahead without revealing the secret of her magic eyes. A new thought occurs to her. Ursh is her future husband and already knows some of her secrets, so keeping this from him might be worse than telling him the truth. She excitedly turns to him and declares that she has found Marie 2 blocks away, to which he calmly responds that they should get going. He then takes a firm grip of her hand. Isabella is internally conflicted, pleased that he believes her but confused as to why he is not questioning how she knew. Ursh simply says they must run to catch Marie before she gets away. They agree to follow Marie until she delivers her letter, but Isabella remains perplexed by his lack of skepticism. She finally asks him why he believed her so easily, and he laughs, telling her it is because her face cannot lie. He explains that he can read everything on her face, from her worry about the maid to her current anxiety over how to reveal her secret ability. She realizes he is adept at reading people as expected of a merchant's son, but Ursh clarifies that he simply wants to believe in her, believing it is a wonderful thing to have at least one person who will always trust you. His thoughtfulness makes her heart clench, and he adds that he wants to be that person for her. He continues, stating that the idea of unconditional belief is the most reassuring concept in the world. Isabella remains confused, asking why he would go to such lengths for her when they have only just met for the second time. With a grin, Ursh explains that by establishing this deep trust, he is ensuring she will never be able to leave him or cast him aside. His smiling face suddenly seems dark and scary to her, and an awkward silence falls between them. She asks if he thinks it is wise to be so brutally honest, but he dismisses the idea of phrasing it more nicely, saying it would be pointless. He tells her that their relationship will be bumpy if she cannot love him for who he truly is. She admits she still does not understand why he chose her but agrees that she does not want them to spend their lives tiptoeing around one another. She suggests that perhaps his affection is based on a misunderstanding, while Ursh sadly concedes that he is well aware he is not popular with girls. He wants her to know the real him as soon as possible, which prompts her to confess that for her, it was love at first sight. She tells him it is fine, as she can get to know him better from now on, certain that mutual respect will forge a powerful, unconscious bond between them. Internally, she celebrates her reincarnation, revealing that she had fallen in love with him at first sight in her previous life based on his appearance alone, a love so strong she would have sacrificed years of her life for him. Ursh stares at her intently and asks if she promises not to run away or leave him, regardless of what she learns about his personality. Holding up a peace sign, Isabella declares that as long as he avoids domestic violence, she is already so charmed by him that she would be willing to overlook cheating or gambling, causing Ursh to quietly protest that he is not that bad. He asks if she knows someone who fits that description, and she flusters, denying that she was thinking of anyone specific. Avoiding his gaze, she claims to have merely heard stories about such people. She mentally chides herself, thinking no other 6-year-old noble would use such examples, just as Ursh points out that they seem to have lost the maid once again. When she asks how it happened, Ursh bluntly states that he does not care what happens to anyone else as long as she is not the one getting hurt. He clarifies his earlier offer of help, admitting he only did it because she looked worried and that he honestly could not care less about the girl they were following. Isabella blushes, finding his malicious honesty incredibly cute, which prompts Ursh to muse that she must be the only person who would be happy just to see him smile. He asks if she truly likes his appearance that much, and she replies with total seriousness that she would gladly spend the rest of her life just looking at him. He remarks that with such an attitude, the day she comes to love his entire being is not far off, a sentiment that perfectly matches his own thoughts. Isabella reflects that her current, superficial reasons for her attraction feel rather impudent. Nevertheless, she silently vows that someday she will come to love the true Ursh. She makes a mental plea for him to wait for her until that day comes. Realizing it was never truly necessary to watch over Marie, they decide it is time to resume their search for the forgotten maid. The pursuit begins again, driven by the knowledge that both she and Sean would regret it if Marie were harmed, with the added benefit for Isabella that Ursh will remain by her side until the situation is resolved. Watching Marie's slow progress, Isabella worries if she will even return by dinnertime and mentally urges the maid to just do her job. They find Marie spaced out again, explaining her troubles to a stranger about how the person she likes has been avoiding her for 3 days, while Isabella wonders how she has managed to wander so far. Ursh suggests they leave Marie alone, as she probably just needs time to recover, and when he asks Isabella if she is bored, she readily agrees, stating she does not care about the maid's love problems at all. Through this interaction, Isabella feels she is beginning to understand Ursh's disposition much better. He is the type of person who simply does not care about things in which he has no vested interest. Her train of thought is interrupted when Ursh notices her staring at a whip he is carrying and asks if she wants it, to which she recoils internally. She muses that a whip would suit her villainous persona, but finds it unnerving how well it seems to suit the dark side of Ursh's personality. He lifts the whip, explaining that he simply brought it along to practice with. Isabella can only stare back with a blank expression. The combination of Ursh and a whip seems incredibly scary to her, and she wonders what kind of shady merchant business would require one. Her imagination runs wild as he cracks the whip for practice, though he assures her it is not some kind of hobby. As her mind races with thoughts of an outrageous part-time job, he calmly clarifies that he uses it to drive a wagon. He explains that coachmen require long whips for horse-drawn carriages and that one must be careful with them to avoid injury to oneself or others. Isabella breathes a sigh of relief at the sensible explanation, feeling sorry for her wild and crazy suspicions. She grabs him, remarking that it seems quite considerate of him to be careful not to hit other people, especially since he has no interest in them. He leans in menacingly, asking if he truly seems like the kind of person who enjoys whipping others and if he is that questionable in her eyes. Sweating nervously, she apologizes again and agrees he would not go that far, though a part of her still thinks it would suit his dark side. He lets the matter slide for now but warns her it will not happen again, prompting her to quickly change the subject by asking about his wagon driving practice. He explains that as the company head's son he does not really need to learn, but since she expressed a desire to be a peddler with him, he felt he should start practicing. Isabella blushes at the implication that he is preparing for their future marriage, and when he asks for her opinion on his career path, she insists she will support whatever he chooses to do. She affirms that since he will be the one working, she will stay with him no matter what path he takes. He asks if she has changed her mind about being his wife, to which she gives a firm, "Of course not." He laughs, pleased, stating that his love is not so flimsy as to fade over something like that. He tells her he is genuinely thankful to have met someone like her, which touches her deeply. Their tender moment is shattered by a sudden disturbance nearby, causing them both to turn in alarm. They see that the commotion was caused by Marie-chan, who is now sitting on the ground in distress. A narrator in a maid outfit explains that she and someone named Ursh are following her own maid, who is lovesick and dazed, to make sure she gets home safely. A young blonde girl, Isabella, looks on with concern beside a boy, wondering what has happened to Marie-chan. Isabella is shocked to see Marie surrounded by angry adventurers, who are shouting and demanding to know what's going on. The scene clarifies that Marie, in her daze, tried to walk past the adventurers and inadvertently caused them to drop what they were carrying. Isabella internally praises Erskine for his superior tracking abilities as the adventurers dropped catch. A horned creature is shown with its horn broken. A wave of panic hits Isabella as she realizes the situation is entirely Marie's fault and that clumsiness is not part of her maid's character archetype. An enraged adventurer raises his fist to strike the cowering Marie, prompting Isabella to clench her own fist, determined to bring the situation under control. Just as the man's fist descends, a bright flash of magic emanates from Isabella's direction. Isabella glares forward, fully committed to saving her maid. A loud sound effect rings out as Marie looks on in shock from the ground. The adventurers all collapse, knocked unconscious in an instant. Isabella stands stunned while Erskine casually mentions that he hadn't even struck them yet. She can only utter a confused sound in response. The adventurers begin to stir, now showing concern for the unconscious Marie, which only deepens Isabella's confusion about what just occurred. Isabella realizes with a jolt that something shot out from her eyes and she questions what power she just unleashed. The thought hits her that the mysterious force struck Marie-chan directly. She spirals into panic, calling herself an idiot for having knocked out her own maid instead of rescuing her. She desperately tries to figure out a course of action to save Marie from the predicament. Deciding flight is the best option, she dashes away with incredible speed, startling an onlooker who mistakes her movement for a special skill. She resolves to hightail it out of there and make a clean getaway. She hesitates, however, considering her responsibility as Marie's employer to compensate the men and avoid future complaints. The thought is short-lived as she remembers that, being a duke's daughter, she never carries money and lacks the funds to compensate them. A new idea dawns on her. She can simply replace their broken item with one from her personal closet. She decides to pull a useless but expensive-looking item from the dimensional closet stored under her skirt to act as a replacement. She summons a mithril jamadhar, reasoning that it's a plausible self-defense weapon for a noble girl to be carrying. Stepping toward the lead adventurer, she presents the weapon and declares it should be a sufficient apology. She offers the jamadhar as compensation and proof of her apology, telling them to take it. Without waiting for a response, she lifts the unconscious Marie and begins to power walk away from the scene. Her attempt to leave fails as the adventurer shouts for the little missy to stop and wait a minute. Realizing her gambit has failed, she concludes that running is her only chance of winning and breaks into a sprint. She is horrified to see the adventurer giving chase and panics, wondering why he is pursuing her. The strain of carrying Marie in her child's body prevents her from running at full speed, and she worries about the damage being done to her maid's legs from being dragged. The chase creates a bizarre and conspicuous public scene of a little girl carrying a maid while being pursued by a grown man. As she begs for him to give up, a loud boom echoes through the streets. A powerful blast erupts just behind her, sending debris flying. Everyone is caught off guard by a sudden, strong blast of wind. A whip cracks through the air with immense force. Isabella looks back, her eyes wide with surprise. The adventurers are thrown to the ground by the force of the whip, left wondering what just happened. Holding Marie, Isabella is equally confused by the sudden turn of events. Appears beside her, gently touching her hair and speaking her name, Isabella. He tells her that this is their chance to escape while the adventurers are still down on the ground. As they start to leave, Isabella calls out to They are shown dragging the unconscious Marie along the pavement behind them. Isabella reminds of his own previous advice that it is common sense not to point a whip at other people. Dismisses her concern, bluntly stating that it's fine because he didn't actually hit them. She argues that there's a significant difference between not hitting them and not feeling like hitting them, but her point is lost on him. She wonders about the true power of his whip and if he is secretly very strong, but he explains its effects are due to alchemy, not personal strength. Isabella gives him a look of deep suspicion. She reflects on the fact that Erskine had been crafting magic-imbued items since he was merely 6 years old. The scene shifts to the exterior of a quiet house. Inside, Marie is now conscious and bowing low to the ground, begging for forgiveness for her inexcusable behavior. Isabella and observe her apology. Marie cries out that she not only neglected her duties and endangered her lady but also forced Isabella to compensate others on her behalf. Nonchalantly comments that getting fired for such an incident wouldn't be unusual, causing Marie to freeze in shock. Isabella internally acknowledges that while they were lucky to make it to Ursh's house, the trouble is far from over. A brief flashback shows their arrival, Marie's panicked awakening in an unfamiliar place, and the subsequent explanation of events. Isabella mulls over the complicated situation, feeling responsible for knocking Marie out and acknowledging her failed compensation attempt, all while wanting to protect her maid from being dismissed. She recalls not feeling burdened while carrying Marie but then has a sudden, painful realization about the condition of her maid's legs. Lifting Marie's dress, Isabella reveals severe scrapes and bruises covering her legs from being dragged along the ground. She is racked with guilt, realizing this injury is her fault and that her immense powers are useless if she doesn't know how to wield them properly. She laments that all her powerful items are worthless if they can't even help her injured friend. Turning to Marie, Isabella offers her a potion, stating that it should be able to heal her legs. Marie is overcome with emotion, touched that her lady would use such a precious medicine on a servant like her. Ursh steps in, correcting Isabella by explaining that while an HP potion restores physical strength, it cannot actually heal physical wounds. He clarifies that HP is a game-like power system and that HP potions don't staunch bleeding or mend injuries like cuts and bruises. When Isabella asks what to do for injuries, Ursh explains that is where holy magic users like healers and priests come in, a system very different from the games she is used to where potions healed everything. Isabella absorbs this new information, understanding that this is a fundamental difference between a game and this world's reality. Deeply upset, she apologizes to Marie and resolves that she must be healed quickly. Ursh comforts Isabella, promising that everything will be all right and that he will treat Marie's wounds himself. He calmly approaches the injured maid. Placing his hands over her legs, a gentle light shines as he performs the healing. After a moment, he pulls back and announces that the healing is complete. Isabella encourages Marie to stand, and they both look on in a blank stare of disbelief as it appears she has been fully cured. Marie stands up without any issue, amazed that she is completely healed and expressing profound gratitude to Ursh. Isabella is overjoyed, telling Ursh he is amazing and excitedly asking how he performed the healing. He simply explains that he can use holy-type magic and cast a healing spell. With the matter settled, Ursh tells Isabella it is time for her and her healed maid to go home, adding that a witch lives there and he was happy to show off for her. Isabella pictures a stereotypical witch, but Ursh clarifies that the reality is likely different from her imaginings. He informs her that one of his employees has already been sent to her home to let her family know her whereabouts, and that a pickup will arrive soon. The news that someone is coming to pick her up throws Isabella into a state of alarm. She panics, realizing her family will discover she snuck out, and begs Ursh to tell them she was never there. She frantically suggests a plan for him to mislead her family while she returns to the mansion by herself. Ursh calmly tells her it is too dangerous to go back alone, but she shrieks that she secretly left the mansion and her family will be furious. He tries to calm her, saying her beauty makes her a target for creeps and that he worries for her safety. Flustered by his compliment, she apologizes but remains determined. She decides she absolutely cannot allow herself to be caught. Most especially by one person in particular. She knows she cannot be found by him. A servant voices his unease about a lady being made to kneel in the entrance hall, but Master Demon curtly states that the girl is not a concern. He declares with cold finality that she is not to be considered a lady of their house. The girl, Isabella, kneels and wonders just how events spiraled to this point. Demon stands over her, his armored form casting a large shadow, while she remains behind him. Isabella recalls that her current personality is a merger of her past life as an otaku and her present one as a young noble, which includes Isabella's inherent overeagerness and her fraught relationship with her family. A sudden loud noise makes her tremble, as she realizes the one person she hoped would not discover her little trip, Ursh, has arrived. From Demon's vantage point, he sees Isabella looking toward the doorway where her maid and a young boy now stand. The boy, Ursh, looks down at Isabella and asks what he should do with her, causing her to panic internally. Her father then appears, shouting in disbelief at her recklessness, while Demon looks on. Isabella shivers, understanding her father's anger but questioning the menacing presence of her brother, Demon, who is glaring at her. She identifies him as Demon Zack Rottenstein of the Imperial Knights, the very man the original Isabella feared most due to the severe punishments he would devise for her tomboyish behavior. She questions how the original Isabella ever grew into a villainous when she had a brother who disciplined her so intensely for every minor infraction. Demon's glare intensifies her fear, and she imagines him hog-tying her and tossing her into a pond. While her father shouts in shock, Isabella frantically searches for an excuse to placate her brother. Deciding that flight is the best option, she embraces the idea that one who runs away lives to fight another day and leaps through the nearest window. Her father cries out, "Bella?" in shock as she flees, and she silently apologizes to Ursh for the broken glass, vowing to reimburse him. A few hours pass in the wake of Isabella's escape from the estate. A visitor arrives at the Imperial Knights' barracks, interrupting the off-duty soldiers. The knights are surprised to see Lady Maureen, who they recognize as Demon Zack Rottenstein's fiancée. Lady Maureen conveys a message from Demon, explaining that his nearly 6-year-old sister is loose in town and her nimbleness requires the help of off-duty knights on horseback. The knights are puzzled by the need for horses to catch a small child, a sentiment Maureen shares, but one knight agrees to gather some men to assist. 2 hours later, the search has intensified. 5 more horsemen from the Knight Corps arrive as reinforcements, and their commander urges them to complete their task before sunset. A messenger reports that the target continues to evade them with stamina and leg power that are off the charts, capable of jumping 8 meters, and her killing intent was so intense it repelled the lycanthrope unit, forcing the knights to use warhorses. The commander stresses that the target is the Duke's daughter and they must proceed with caution to secure, not capture her. He reiterates his warning not to attempt to subjugate her just as the knights witness her jump between buildings. Isabella flies through the air, her dress catching the wind as she sails over the rooftops. A young knight watches her descent, utterly captivated and seeing her as an angel. The scene is framed for impact. Dazed, the knight continues to stare as he perceives the girl flying through the sky. Isabella, however, is simply dashing across the rooftops with great focus. She continues her high-speed escape, leaping from building to building. The knight exclaims that the little lady is amazing, comparing her to a high-rank monster, which earns him a sharp rebuke from his commander who reminds him again not to try and subjugate her. The pursuit carries on through the city's architecture. A group of weary adventurers walk down the street. The adventurers, who had earlier been part of the chase, are completely exhausted, conceding that no normal human could possibly catch the girl. A man approaches the tired adventurers with a proposition. He sells them recovery potions, which they eagerly accept. When one adventurer asks why the Schneever Company is involved, the salesman reveals that the girl they are chasing, Lady Isabella, is the fiancée of their own young master, Ursh. He spins a romantic tale, claiming the entire incident is just the result of a duke's daughter, deeply in love, running away to see the young master. The salesman requests that they treat Lady Isabella with care, leaving the adventurers to process this new information. Now understanding the situation, the adventurers agree to help and spread the true story to the other search parties. Nearby, a woman quietly asks the salesman if his plan is proceeding, and he confirms he will continue to spread the word throughout town. Meanwhile, Isabella staggers in an alley, exhausted and bewildered by how chaotic everything has become. She bemoans being treated like a monster for simply trying to visit her fiancé and considers surrender, but the feeling of countless bloodthirsty eyes on her back compels her to keep running. Her escape is cut short when she comes face to face with a sparkling Ursh, and her first thought is to call child services on him. That thought is immediately replaced by adoration as her eyes turn to hearts. Ursh moves toward her with a length of rope in his hand. Before she can react, he skillfully wraps the rope around her, securing her tightly. As he captures her, Isabella is struck by his cute smile and can only think his name. Back at the manor, a captured and depressed Isabella is being lectured by her brother in a hallway. It is 2 in the morning, and she considers this ordeal worse than any public condemnation she could have imagined. She believes things would have ended peacefully if Demon had not gotten involved, as his terrifying pursuit forced her to run for her life. As Demon grabs her face with his gauntlet, she internally proclaims her innocence. She silently questions the necessity of him using his iron claw on his small sister, as he looks away with a clenched fist. Isabella concludes that the entire day was an absolute horror. A few days later, she finally understands the reason for the chaos. Her skill at hiding her presence was so effective that her brother, an Imperial Knight, had to be called in to find her. While learning why he scolded her all night long was depressing, she finds herself in high spirits for another reason. She is now officially recognized as Ursh's fiancée, a development she is thrilled about even with the 9-year wait ahead of her. The rumor that the girl causing a ruckus was the fiancée of the Schneever Company's son spread so fast that congratulatory gifts began arriving from nobles and the Order of Mages. The ultimate confirmation came in the form of a gift from the King of Rosereel himself, an event so shocking it caused her father to faint. With the engagement now impossible to retract, Official documents were drafted, and Isabella celebrates her public betrothal to Ursh. Her joy is cut short when her brother delivers grim news. As punishment, she will be joining the lycanthrope unit for a month of training. She inwardly rebels at the thought, refusing to go through with it and be kept away from Ursh. Believing there is still hope, she resolves to use her tears to persuade her father and calls for her maid to bring a change of clothes for another escape attempt. She steels her nerves with the thought that she who runs away lives to fight another day. As she turns to leave, she freezes upon seeing her brother demon blocking her path. He grabs her head and asks why she is up so early. She mentally pleads for someone, anyone, to come to her rescue. As Demon's grip tightens, he demands to know where she was going, and she can only think to beg for someone to call Japan's Child Protective Services. Isabella recounts how a recent harrowing incident in which she fled through the city ultimately led to her engagement with Ursh being formally recognized, though it also brought upon her the intense fury of her brother. The start of a new discovery begins. Exhausted, Isabella tells Ursh that the experience was awful, even though she managed to make good friends within the lycanthrope unit she was forced into. Her companion expresses disbelief that she had to participate in their training, the memory punctuated by the sound of a tool striking a hard surface. Ursh sighs, asking why she would ever agree to something so demanding. Isabella explains she had no choice, as her brother Demon used the threat of a game of tag to essentially throw her to the wolves, a situation that has persisted for some time. Ursh then asks if she ever learned what subsequently happened in the royal capital, prompting a curious Isabella to inquire about the events. He reveals that the knights used the game of tag as a cover to dismantle a massive underground slave trafficking operation and cautions Isabella that her own beauty makes her a potential target for kidnapping, a fate she hopes to avoid. When Isabella prepares tea and asks for cups, Ursh gestures toward laboratory beakers, questioning if she seriously plans to use them, to which she simply agrees. Isabella correctly identifies the vessels as beakers, expressing her surprise that Ursh is familiar with such items. She finds it odd that a large workshop lacks proper cups, while Ursh seems unbothered, leading her to conclude that his intense focus on his work makes him disregard such necessities. To avoid any risk of drinking a strange chemical, Isabella produces her own personal cup to use instead. This brings to mind a memory of her father's clever business idea to sell concentrated lemonade in bottles, allowing customers to dilute it themselves and making the product last much longer. The thought of lemonade triggers another realization for Isabella. Her own avaricious skill must function differently from Ursh's appraisal ability. She recalls that while Ursh's appraisal skill can identify an item's raw materials and ingredients, hers only reveals its practical effects, such as how tea can restore one's stamina. Wondering if Ursh's skill is simply an upgraded version of her own, she resolves to ask him directly instead of trying to figure it out by herself. Ursh notices her standing and thoughtfully asks if she would like to sit down. Seeing the worried look on her face, he suggests they pause for a break and invites her to share what is troubling her. Acknowledging his perceptiveness, Isabella decides to accept his kindness and takes a seat. She begins to explain that she recently checked her own status and discovered a skill similar, yet different, to his appraisal ability, though she admits she's not entirely sure of his skill's full capabilities. Ursh states that his own skill cannot see raw materials and then redirects the conversation, asking who it was that performed her status check. Her simple reply that she did it herself in her room leaves Ursh momentarily baffled, and Isabella wonders if she said something strange. With a tone of shock, Ursh seeks clarification, asking if she is truly capable of viewing her own skills list. As Isabella chokes on her drink in surprise, he gravely informs her that this is not a normal ability and strongly advises her to keep it a secret. While Ursh calmly sips his drink, Isabella is left reeling from this startling new information. A frantic Isabella then asks how people are supposed to check their skills, and Ursh explains the common practice of hiring a professional assessor for the task. She questions why people don't simply ask someone with an appraisal skill, prompting Ursh to clarify that appraisal normally cannot assess skills or magic, which reminds Isabella of the mandatory analysis for prospective students at Rosereal Academy. Isabella falls into a contemplative silence as she absorbs the weight of this knowledge. Ursh reiterates his warning about secrecy before shifting topics to ask if her skill allows her to appraise other humans. She despairs that her unique abilities prevent her from living the ordinary life she desires with Ursh, but he lightheartedly points out that her recent escapades with the knights had already complicated that dream. Returning to her earlier question, Ursh speculates that her skill is likely an enhanced version of appraisal, given that his own cannot reveal detailed information like raw materials. He reveals a secret of his Schneever family. Some are born with an appraisal skill but paradoxically cannot be assessed themselves, meaning he knows very little about his own abilities and that his skill only appears to be a standard appraisal. Stunned by this confidential revelation, Isabella listens as he adds that a typical appraisal skill cannot determine raw materials the way his does. Ursh then makes a request for her to use her appraisal skill on him, assuring her he doesn't mind if she sees his entire status. Moved by his trust, Isabella agrees to try, despite her nervousness, and Ursh hands her paper, asking her to write down whatever she is able to see. As she activates her skill, her body freezes. It was successful, and Ursh immediately senses the change, asking her what she sees. He waits with a curious expression for her to report her findings. A complex status window appears before Isabella's eyes, detailing Ursh Schneever's incredibly high-level stats, his job, and an extensive list of skills, including a hereditary special skill. Her mind is blown by the sheer power displayed on the screen, and she can only think that he is completely overpowered. Her shock deepens as she questions the nature of his cheat abilities, the meaning of hereditary special skills, and the mysterious Eyes of Mammon skill. While she can infer the function of most of his skills from their names, the Eyes of Mammon remains a complete enigma. A sudden thought strikes her. If Eyes of Mammon is an upgraded version of her own Avaricia, then she must know if he has ever used it on her. With a bright smile, Ursh answers with a simple no. He elaborates that he would never want to invade her privacy in such a way that might cause her to resent him. He further explains that his skill is a constantly active type, which means that when he was younger he was perpetually bombarded with status boxes until he learned to consciously suppress them. Isabella feels a pang of sympathy for what must have been an awful experience, just as Ursh turns the tables and asks if she would permit him to appraise her in return. She hesitates, her words catching in her throat. A wave of internal panic washes over her as she imagines him seeing her unusually high, gorilla-like HP, a thought that wounds her pride as a woman. She tries to explain her apprehension, admitting that her HP is not normal for a girl and that she fears he will dislike her for it. Ursh gently reassures her, patting her head and stating that he would never dislike her for something so trivial and that she has nothing to worry about. He then reveals with a smile that he already suspected her HP was high, given that she never needed a single recovery potion during their intense game of tag. Isabella slumps in despair, regretting not having feigned the need for potions, while Ursh continues to comfort her. A profound sense of peace settles over her as she realizes that no matter how unusual she is, Ursh will accept her completely. She grabs him, declaring that he cannot take back his promise to stay by her side, and he readily agrees, whispering that he will never let her go even if she tries to run. With a deadpan expression, Isabella informs him that she heard his whispered vow perfectly clearly. Still holding his hand, she thinks to herself that like the heroine of a story, she would never miss such an important declaration. She tells him there is no need to whisper such things in the future, he should say them aloud, because that is what she desires too. He looks surprised, despite his eyes being closed, and she briefly wonders if her hearing is just exceptionally sharp. Looking slightly embarrassed, Ursh asks for confirmation that she will definitely marry him. His sudden shyness flusters her, and she exclaims that of course she will, urging him to look at her status and take responsibility for her, at which point he leans in and kisses her, vowing to make her his wife. Reinvigorated, she eagerly encourages him to proceed with the appraisal and even asks for his impressions, and he cheerfully agrees to take notes. After viewing her status, a thoughtful Ursh poses a question to Isabella. He asks what her social position was listed as when she checked her own status, clarifying that it's not a major issue. Isabella replies that it said Duke's daughter, prompting Ursh to explain that his skill shows job and social position as separate categories, meaning his own would likely be merchant. This makes him curious about what her social position is listed as when he views it. He reads it aloud, something exceedingly close to a duke's daughter, a bizarre and shocking description. Both of them are stunned, admitting they have never encountered such a strange social position before. Ursh then moves on to her HP, which he reveals to be an astonishing 67,335, comparable to that of a medium-sized earth dragon, a fact that Isabella, as a woman, finds less than pleasing. He then lightheartedly suggests that they avoid physical fights in their future marriage. The massive number finally registers for Isabella, and she asks him to repeat it, feeling a sense of disbelief. She is shocked because the value is far higher than the 9,999 cap she saw when she checked it herself, leading her to suspect her own skill has a limitation on the values it can display. She theorizes that the rules of the game from her past life, where avaricia originated, might still be affecting her skill, imposing a level cap that doesn't exist for others. Just before Ursh asks her about her title. The question confuses Isabella, as she saw no such category when she viewed her own status. Ursh simply remarks that if she cannot see it herself, she likely wouldn't understand its meaning. Isabella waits in suspense for him to elaborate. He then reveals the title he sees for her is Reincarnate. The word strikes Isabella with the force of a thunderbolt. In a moment of pure dread, she understands that her deepest secret has just been exposed. A young girl is startled when a small boy named Ursh reveals a secret he discovered by reading her status. Her title is Reincarnate. She panics internally, realizing she has been found out by someone who seems to understand the word's meaning. The two stand back to back, the girl filled with anxiety while the boy remains calm. Addressing her as Mr. Mammon, she is again asked by the boy if she knows what being a reincarnator means. She quietly fumes, thinking about how dare he expose her secret like this. Flustered and caught off guard, she stammers, unable to form a coherent response. Squeezing the fabric of her dress, she decides she can trust Urshkuin and prepares to tell him everything. The boy, Ursh, looks up at her, waiting for her to speak. She feels confident that he, of all people, will be able to understand her unique circumstances. After she finishes her explanation, Ursh summarizes his understanding of her story, addressing her as Isabella. His summary is wildly inaccurate, describing a past life of defeating dragons and plundering dungeons, which she immediately denies. Isabella struggles to correct his misunderstanding, panting with the effort, while he playfully suggests that her supposed hobby of slaying dragons would have been more profitable than her actual past job as a receptionist. She proposes that it would be more efficient if he asked her questions instead, to which he agrees, asking about the chains of events from her past memories that are set to happen in this life, a question she correctly interprets as being about the Otome game's routes. She confesses her lack of confidence in her ability to avoid her own destruction route, and admits how reassuring it is to have him there to back her up. She begins to cry, sharing her greatest fear, that the world, like the game it's based on, has a will of its own that will prevent them from marrying as they have planned. Ursh calmly reassures her, promising that he will never allow something like that to happen. Her hands gripped with renewed resolve, Isabella humbly thanks him for his cooperation in ensuring her safe marriage to him, and he promises that he won't let anyone else have her. As he stands, Ursh grabs her, telling her he has one final question to ask. She is flustered by his sudden proximity, her mind racing as she wonders what he could possibly want to know. He asks her to choose who she likes more, the future version of him from her past life's memories, or the present version of him standing before her. After considering it, Isabella explains that while her feelings began because of her memories, she is certain that she likes the real, flesh-and-blood Urshkuin more, which seems to relieve him. Ursh admits he sometimes felt she was looking at someone else behind him, and now understands his future self is a rival. Isabella adds to his perplexity by revealing that most of the alchemical items she possesses were created by that future Ursh. Ursh decides to simply accept her magic closet skills ability to bring items across space-time, noting its usefulness, while Isabella thinks to herself that Ursh could probably master such magic for real. He asks to see the items his future self created, and she agrees, thinking that if the current Ursh learns to recreate them, her possession of such advanced items will no longer be questionable. While examining the items, Ursh asks in disbelief if he really made them all, and Isabella confirms it, stating she lacks the skills, which elicits a quiet, knowing laugh from him. A menacing aura envelopes Ursh as he vows that he will definitely surpass the man that his Isabella once liked. Isabella quickly tries to calm him, reassuring him that the person she likes right now is him. Their conversation is cut short by a knock at the door. She suddenly remembers her trip to see Urshkuin as she is being dragged away. The memory becomes clear, she is being forcibly removed because she never received her brother's permission for the visit. Several days later, a carriage arrives at a large building, and a maid calls out for Lady Isabella. Isabella, who is nearly 6 years old, protests that she doesn't need help exiting the carriage, but her maid, Marie, lifts her down regardless. She is visiting Urshkuin at the Schneider Company's main store, their meeting disguised as a picnic because Ursh had warned her that a witch lives near his home. Looking up at the building, Isabella compares its incredible variety of goods to a modern-day department store. The interior is vast and spacious, and she is surprised when a hand pats her head and someone says her name. It is Ursh, accompanied by an older man, thanking her for coming to meet him. Ursh dismisses the need for formalities between them since they are engaged, explaining it was more practical to meet here since it's closer to their destination. The maid, Marie, worries about their plan to venture outside the capital's fortified walls with just one escort, as those walls protect the city from monsters. The older man, Paul, echoes the sentiment, saying he couldn't bear it if anything happened to Isabella, so Ursh suggests Paul come along with them. Paul's superior formally asks if one of their guards can accompany her, an offer which Isabella gratefully accepts. The carriage rattles as the group sets off on their journey. Isabella reflects on their picnic party, her own escort, Mr. Muhaimin, the coachman, old Gasparo, and the guard from Ursh's family, Mr. Paul. She whispers to Ursh, telling him that she used her appraisal skill on Mr. Paul and discovered a strange skill on his list. Her eyes widen in shock at the cross-dressing skill, and she immediately wonders if the Schneever Company's business requires such a thing, or if it is merely a hobby. Ursh quickly shakes his head, clarifying that it was a skill Paul used for a previous job, not his current one. He suggests that if she looks at Paul's other skills, she will likely be able to guess his former line of work. He reveals that Mr. Paul and his associates were burglars who once targeted the Schneever Company, but Ursh's grandfather caught them and hired them as guards. Isabella silently chastises the former CEO for hiring such dangerous people, before Ursh changes the subject, announcing that he was able to check his own status using his Eyes of Mammon skill after she left last time. Overjoyed and amazed that he figured it out so quickly, she praises him, causing him to become shy. Ursh's embarrassed expression is so different from his usual wry smile that Isabella finds herself staring intently, wanting to burn the rare sight into her memory. The carriage continues its journey, rattling along the road out of the city. They find that the area immediately outside the city walls is surprisingly noisy and highly developed. Isabella excitedly points out the window, asking what she is seeing. Ursh calmly identifies the object as a steam engine train, explaining that the railway system was built by the Metalia kingdom to the west. He elaborates that since Metalia's population is about 70% dwarven, it is the source of most major inventions, and that they built the tracks 120 years prior to connect 7 allied nations. Isabella is fascinated, imagining Metalia as a magical, steampunk-style industrial land, and excitedly declares that she really wants to ride the train. She begins to plan a trip for them to take the steam train to Metalia in the future, suggesting they could stay for several months after they graduate from the academy. Ursh continues his lesson, describing the neighboring Garu Empire, a nation of beastmen known for weaponsmithing, which serves as the spear of the allied kingdoms. He explains that their own Rosreal kingdom is renowned for its magic and acts as the shield of the alliance, fending off attacks until reinforcements can arrive from the Garu Empire. His lecture covers the Diana kingdom in the north, known for advanced medicine, and the Salazard kingdom in the southern desert, which is Mr. Muhaimin's home, a nation that breeds horses but is not part of the alliance. Inspired, Isabella enthusiastically suggests that after they marry, they should travel the world together selling his goods. Ursh smiles, agreeing that while the prospect is daunting, it would surely be a fun adventure if he were with her. Marie interjects, pointing out that Isabella's manner of speaking has changed quite a bit recently. Isabella feels a sense of dizzying confusion, realizing she has dropped her noble pretensions and has been speaking casually, but Ursh tells her he prefers it because it makes him feel closer to her. He adds that her formal speech makes her feel distant and sad, which prompts Isabella to declare that she will speak casually from now on. She resolves internally that she could never willingly do something to make Urshkun sad, especially since she will one day be by his side as his wife. They finally arrive at their destination, a beautiful, windy clearing, and get ready for their picnic and meeting. Isabella joyfully announces that it is time to begin their skill check meeting. She looks around in awe, remarking on how amazing and peaceful the place is. Ursh explains that though most people use the area as a training ground, he noticed the small flowers that bloom with every step. He demonstrates that the ground is covered in a sturdy grass that absorbs both magical and physical shocks, assuring her that she won't get hurt even if she falls. Isabella is impressed, wishing she could plant the special grass everywhere at her home. Marie directs her attention to a group of students from the Knight Academy practicing their swordplay nearby. She mentions that it is the uniform of Master Demon's alma mater, where Isabella herself will soon be enrolling. This news confuses Isabella, who turns to Marie and asks if she is not supposed to be attending the Magic Academy. Marie clarifies that while that was the original plan, Master Demon recently spoke with Isabella's father to confirm her attendance at the Knight Academy, before asking if Isabella has learned to use magic yet. Isabella considers this, realizing that the only magical ability she has revealed to others is her closet skill, and that she has yet to fully investigate her own powers. A thought strikes her, since she has only displayed physical abilities so far. If she refrains from using magic and attends the Night Academy, she might be able to completely avoid the scenarios from the Otome game. As Isabella weighs her options, she hesitates, feeling conflicted. She collapses to the ground in turmoil as Marie asks what's wrong, realizing she doesn't want to just play it safe. Clutching onto a sleeping Ursh, she declares with all her heart that she really wants to go to the same school as him. Isabella announces with determination to her maid, Marie, that Ursh is going to assess all the magic she can use. An overjoyed Marie expresses her own desire to practice magic, while a smiling Ursh confirms he will analyze Isabella's magic eyes of the 7 deadly sins. While Ursh begins his analysis, Isabella passes the time by using her pride skill, a form of clairvoyance, to watch people training in a nearby practice area. Her distant sight focuses on a group of female adventurers practicing magic while wearing revealing armor bikinis. Ursh interrupts her viewing, handing her a sheet of paper with the results of his analysis, which causes Isabella to gasp in shock as she reads it. She struggles to read his messy handwriting, comparing it to a secret code, but resolves to decipher it through the power of her love, quickly hiding the paper when he asks if something is wrong. Having finally decoded the notes, Isabella marvels that her pride skill allows her to change her viewing perspective, which prompts Ursh to remind her that she also used her wrath ability during a past game of tag. He recalls how she used it to knock out Marie and frighten a horse, though he notes it was ineffective against trained cavalry horses. A stunned Isabella finally understands that the beam that shot from her eyes back then was actually the pressure-inducing power of wrath. The revelation that she knocked Marie out with a pressure attack gives her an idea, and she decides to test the ability on her maid once more. She stares at Marie, and the maid collapses instantly. Ursh calmly notes that the skill seems to affect people differently and advises Isabella that she should probably warn people before using it on them. The unconscious maid begins to stir on the picnic blanket. As Marie awakens, Isabella greets her cheerfully and begins to explain what she just did. Marie bows and apologizes for causing trouble, but Isabella insists it's her own fault for knocking her out again, while Ursh suggests they all eat. While enjoying a sandwich, Isabella thinks about how delicious the food in this world is, suspecting she's only tasted the best because she is a duke's daughter. She muses that despite having memories of a past life where she starved, she is not the type of reincarnated person to gain fame by introducing unique food from her old world. The thought of food reminds her that she possesses a cooking skill, and she wonders if an opportunity to use it will ever arise. Ursh notices her contemplative silence and asks what's on her mind, but she brushes it off, saying it's nothing and that she just needs to fill her stomach. After finishing her meal with a loud burp, Isabella stands up, fully energized and declaring it's time for the skill check to continue. She decides to begin the next round of tests with her pride skill. Using the perspective-shifting ability makes her feel intensely nauseous, a familiar feeling from the motion sickness she easily got in her past life, but she tells a concerned Ursh that she's fine. They move on to gluttony, a skill that stores items in a pocket dimension called the closet, and she confirms it works on inanimate objects but fails on living things and items that are only partially visible. She theorizes that by combining gluttony with her penetrative sight skill, lust, she could likely store almost anything she wants. The dangerous potential of this combination is not lost on Ursh, who warns her she could steal treasures from fortified houses, leading her to agree not to use the power in front of others. Their attention turns to envy, which they suspect must be activated in conjunction with another skill, so Ursh suggests trying it with greed first. He instructs her to attempt using holy magic together with envy, while he simultaneously appraises her status. Isabella tries to activate the skill as instructed but cries out in frustration that it's not working. Ursh decides he needs to appraise her envy skill more closely and tells her to sit and have some tea, as it might take some time. She becomes flustered as he stares at her intently, blushing at his prolonged gaze even though she knows it's a necessary part of the appraisal process. Her embarrassment grows, and she silently begs for him to finish quickly, finding it difficult to be stared at for so long by the person she likes. Ursh finally discovers the activation condition. She must witness a magic skill being used in order to copy it with envy, so he uses body enhancement on himself for her to try. Isabella focuses, and to her delight, she successfully copies his skill. She celebrates her success, and Ursh points out that despite having mage-related jobs, she possessed no elemental magic, so he offers to cast a variety of spells for her to copy. She is overwhelmed with gratitude for Ursh helping her acquire so many new abilities. Thanks to him, she successfully copies and acquires 9 different types of elemental magic, and she immediately wants to test them out. Just then, a huge monster crashes through the nearby trees. A fleeing student shouts that it's an owlbear, likely summoned by accident from the Magic Academy, and screams for everyone to run. Ursh sees it as a perfect chance for practice and suggests Isabella try to hit the owlbear with light magic, recommending a non-lethal approach like blinding it. He explains that light magic is purely for illumination and shouldn't be dangerous, which convinces Isabella to try it. She closes her eyes, sets the owlbear as her target, and prepares to unleash the spell. A colossal beam of light erupts from her, creating a massive explosion that obliterates the target and its surroundings. In the aftermath, a deafening silence hangs in the air as everyone stares at the now empty space where the monster once stood. Ursh facepalms, calling himself an idiot for not anticipating that Isabella's immense MP pool would turn a simple illumination spell into a devastating attack. 2 men observing from a distance, presumably bodyguards, can only whistle in astonishment. One quietly asks the other if their clients truly needed bodyguards in the first place. Later, as they travel in a horse-drawn carriage, Isabella has a question for Ursh. He explains that his own appraisal skill is limited, as his HP and MP display is capped at 999, so he proposes she copy his Eyes of Mammon skill with Envy to see his true stats. She focuses and attempts the copy, telling him she doesn't think it failed. Believing it worked, she stares intently to activate the new skill. Ursh watches her, a questioning expression on his face. Her vision is filled with a glitched-out status screen showing her own name, job skills, special skills, and impossibly high HP and MP stats. The garbled, broken text of her status display is deeply unsettling to her. She then brings up Ursh's status and is relieved to see it's perfectly legible, showing his skills, including his newly evolved, absolute appraisal. The relief is short-lived as she realizes the most corrupted parts of her own status relate to her race and social position, hinting at an unknown origin. Her eyes snap back to Ursh's status as she notices a critical detail. His hereditary special skill, Eyes of Mammon, has vanished from its section. She panics, poking Ursh awake and shrieking that his status is weird. Frantically, she tries to explain that his skill has disappeared, but he calmly observes that her own, greed, skill has evolved into Mammon. He apologizes to her, which only confuses her more, and she grabs him by the shoulders, shaking him as she demands to know why he's the one saying sorry. She cries out, asking why his skill has suddenly become her skill and repeating that he has nothing to apologize for. A horse-drawn carriage proceeds down a path a few months after the picnic. Inside, Isabella Ali Rottenstein thinks about her impending social debut at the age of 7, which is to take place at a tea party hosted by the Queen. She sits unhappily, feeling as though she's being forcibly taken to the royal palace. An illustration introduces the chapter title, My First Tea Party, showing Isabella in the carriage with a young girl asleep on her lap. In a flashback, her mother discusses plans for Isabella's debut now that she is 7, much to Isabella's silent shock. Her mother happily elaborates that the debut will be at a function held by the Queen herself. This news triggers a powerful and dreadful realization for Isabella. She recognizes this tea party as the Solid Contact Flag, a pivotal event from the Otome game where she is fated to become engaged to the second prince. Her mind flashes through the game's main love interests, Geiss Natorand, the head mage's son, Brian Nick Lunderwood, the head knight's son, and the one she fears most, second prince Christopher Ron Rosreal. She recalls the game's backstory, where the original Isabella fell for the prince at first sight and proposed, an engagement he was allowed to accept due to his own, special circumstances. This reminds her of a conversation from her past life, where she and a friend pondered the game's unresolved plot hole regarding the prince's mysterious, special circumstances that gave him the sole choice in his marriage. A scene from the game shows the prince reacting with complete indifference when informed that the Rottenstein family wishes to arrange a marriage with him. The original story unfolded with their engagement being finalized, elevating the Rottenstein family's status while a spoiled Isabella grew into a selfish young woman. Consumed by jealousy over the prince's growing love for the game's heroine, Isabella bullied her relentlessly, ultimately leading to her own downfall. Back in her current reality, she worries that even though she is engaged to Ursh, a commoner merchant, the game's plot might still force her into an engagement with the high-ranking prince. She internally screams that she does not want that fate. She arrives at Ursha's house, seeking his help. She explains to Ursha her anxieties about the tea party and the possibility of it following the game's script, apologizing for showing up unannounced. As she panics about the potential failure of her marriage to Ursh, he confidently reassures her and proposes they devise a strategy for the party. Ursh outlines a plan. She should appraise the 3 love interests, avoid attracting attention from the queen, and, most critically, stay away from the second prince entirely. He tells her that if she successfully evades the engagement, the game's scenarios will no longer be a threat, stealing her resolve to combine her strength with his strategy. She feels a wave of relief, admitting she was panicking alone and that he has helped calm her fears. Ursh expresses his unwavering faith in her, but their conversation is cut short by a knock on the door, which Isabella offers to answer with a strange sense of déjà vu. She opens the door to find an armored man, her brother, standing before her. The next day, she is forcibly transported to the tea party in the carriage, bound in chains by her brother. The carriage comes to a sudden stop. Her mother cheerfully announces their arrival and prepares to exit the carriage. Isabella, still shackled, desperately asks her mother to remove the chains. Her mother is horrified at her brother demon's extreme measures, lamenting that he treated her like an earth dragon and ruined her dress. Once freed, she and her mother prepare to proceed to the party. A royal attendant greets Lady Rottenstein, stating that they were expected, as her mother voices her hope that they aren't late. The attendant leads them toward the greenhouse where the party is being held, and Isabella's mother asks if she's ever seen it. Her mother reminisces that the greenhouse was her favorite place in the castle when she lived there as a princess, hoping Isabella will love it too. Isabella reflects on her mother's past as royalty before her marriage. While being shown around the vast castle grounds, a thought dawns on her. She realizes what an unconventional life she is truly living. The attendant stops and announces that they have arrived. Her mother gestures for her to enter the greenhouse. They are greeted by the sight of a magnificent, sprawling greenhouse teeming with flowers and butterflies. The air is filled with fluttering butterflies among the lush plants. Isabella is utterly captivated by the immense beauty of her mother's beloved greenhouse. Her mother is relieved and pleased when Isabella confirms that she likes it very much. Her mother points her toward a table and encourages her to make new friends, prompting Isabella to steady herself with a deep breath. The convivial tea party officially begins, though not in the way one might expect. To gather information discreetly, Isabella activates her presence obfuscation skill at half power, allowing her to slip away from conversations unnoticed. This strategy is designed to keep her hidden from the love interests while she freely collects intelligence. She recalls that Ursh taught her this technique, which she already used to greet the queen without leaving any impression. She surveys the party and is dismayed to find that all 3 love interests are in attendance, contrary to her hopes. While maintaining an outward appearance of calm, she is internally panicking at the sight of all 3 targets. Her gaze falls on Prince Christopher, the one she must avoid at all costs, noting his beautiful but unsettlingly blank and lifeless eyes. She quickly assesses the other 2. Geiss has wandered off into the foliage with a field guide, and Brian is running about wildly, earning disapproving looks from the other ladies. She concludes that she doesn't need to worry about Geiss or Brian at the moment. She then overhears 2 young ladies gossiping about the recent engagement of the youngest Rottenstein daughter. One of the ladies turns and asks Isabella if she's heard anything, forcing her to play dumb and act as a third party, merely confirming that the fiancé is from the Schneever Merchant Company. The girls excitedly recount a dramatic, fabricated version of the engagement, speaking of immense opposition due to class differences and a fated love-at-first-sight meeting, while Isabella knows there was no such opposition. The gossip continues, claiming a 6-year-old Isabella boldly demanded her parents approve the marriage. The story escalates to include secret letters and a plan to elope together to overcome the supposed obstacles to their love. The girls claim that the couple even went to the Adventurers Guild together, prompting one to wonder how a 6-year-old planned to survive on her own. As the girls praise the loyalty of Isabella's maid, who supposedly begged to join the elopement rather than stop it, Isabella silently fumes, wondering where they heard such nonsense. One girl sighs with envy over Isabella's romance, complaining her own parents won't let her marry, before being shushed by her friend who reminds her Lady Isabella is present. They scan the party, spotting Isabella's mother but not Isabella herself. Isabella sees this as a perfect chance to gather information and approaches the group. She deftly steers the conversation by asking them all which of the boys at the party they find most charming. Listening to their chatter, She notes with some relief that Prince Christopher's name is not being mentioned. The consensus seems to be that Brian is too mischievous, while the mature guy has earned some favor. As the girls continue to discuss their preferences, one girl prepares to give her own answer. She announces that she finds the second prince to be wonderful, finally bringing him into the discussion and catching Isabella off guard. Isabella immediately recognizes the speaker as Amaryllis Ellie Brunst, a sexy villainous character from the Otome game. She remembers that Amaryllis, unlike the original Isabella, was popular and known for causing scandals for the heroine. A wild idea strikes Isabella. If Amaryllis marries the prince, her problem is solved, but the other girls quickly silence Amaryllis, fearing the queen might overhear and force such a union. The girls nervously agree to pretend they heard nothing. Amaryllis appears utterly confused by their panicked reaction. Another girl leans in and asks Amaryllis what could possibly be so terrible about the prince. She whispers that the prince has lost his sanity, his mental state is deteriorating, and he might be locked away permanently if he doesn't recover. Isabella is stunned by this revelation, questioning the safety of discussing such a matter at a party hosted by the prince's own mother. Amaryllis innocently asks for the definitions of sanity and locked away. It dawns on Isabella that a normal 7-year-old would know those terms, just as another girl begins to explain. The girl reveals a secret history of mental illness in the royal family, an affliction causing cognitive degeneration that appears every few generations. This is shocking new information for Isabella. The girl continues, explaining that the prince inherited the same symptoms as the previous king's sister, fueling rumors of a cursed bloodline. Isabella struggles to believe it, thinking such a major plot point couldn't have been omitted from the game, unless it was connected to something else. Her mind flashes back to her past life, to the conversation with her friend about the prince's unexplained, special circumstance. She connects the dots, realizing that this secret illness? She swallows hard as the truth becomes clear. This hereditary mental illness was Prince Christopher's special circumstances that were never revealed in the game. A character frets over information that wasn't in the game, wondering if Isabella's engagement was left to the prince's discretion due to some special circumstance. Overcome with emotion, she begins to cry uncontrollably, realizing with horror that the prince is destined to be locked away. The young girl, Amaryllis, is shown with tears welling in her eyes, her hands clasped in front of her. Another girl, Isabella, thinks it's impossible for the prince to be imprisoned and reflects on how Amaryllis, who was just a pretty face in the game, is now genuinely crying over the prince's condition. Amaryllis asks if the rumors are true, and Isabella confirms them, explaining that she heard about the prince's condition but also that the influential queen is arranging an engagement for him. She elaborates on the royal family's curse. Members with the cursed blood are typically locked away unmarried, but there is an exception for those who marry into a family with significant political power and many supporters. This method has been used in the past to avoid imprisonment, with the royal member living quietly on their spouse's land, leading Amaryllis to ask if this could save His Highness. Isabella muses that there would likely be no objections if Lady Amaryllis were the one to marry him, prompting an excited Amaryllis to ask if her family possesses enough power for such a match. Filled with determination, Amaryllis declares that the matter is settled and she will become the prince's wife. With sparkling eyes, she announces her vow to support His Highness, causing the onlookers to murmur amongst themselves. Isabella knows that while others might dismiss this as a child's fancy, Amaryllis's feelings are sincere and will not fade, just as another girl advises Amaryllis to keep this matter private. For the sake of everyone's happiness, Amaryllis's, the prince's, Ursha's, and her own, Isabella resolves to support their love and checks the prince's status to better understand his condition. The status screen for Prince Christopher reveals his HP is at a critical 1 out of 5. He suffers from psychasthenia, lethargy, and insomnia, and possesses a special hereditary skill called Lucifer's Ears. Isabella notes that this special skill is constantly active, much like Ursha's, and speculates that there might be other such skills affecting different parts of the body. Her eyes widen in focus as she processes this new information. She has a sudden, gasp-worthy realization about the true nature of the constantly active Lucifer's Ears skill and its extensive range. Isabella deduces that the prince is forced to hear the thoughts of everyone with a lower level than him within a 10-kilometer radius, 24/7, which would drive anyone insane and is the cause of his terrible mental and physical state. She understands he is trapped in a never-ending cycle of pain where his skill's constant activity grants him experience, which raises his level and expands the range of voices he can hear. But then a new possibility emerges in her mind. If the prince could master this skill, his suffering could end. If he learned to control his ability, his health would recover, and Lady Amaryllis would not have to watch him suffer. Isabella devises a plan to have Ursh, who has mastered a similar skill, train the prince, an action that could also help her avoid her own doom flag. She knows she must act before the prince's level gets too high or he finally breaks. With firm resolve, she decides on a bold course of action. She will kidnap the second prince. She plans to extract the prince from the tea party and rendezvous with Ursh, concluding that since it's an informal event, kidnapping is her best option. Upon reflection, she tempers her plan, realizing she can't just abduct a prince and should instead seek the help of the queen, who is worried about him. However, she decides she will need to bring a suitable fiancé candidate with her to the negotiation. Her eyes fall upon Lady Amaryllis, and she knows she has found the perfect candidate for her plan. Believing it will be a win-win if the queen approves of Amaryllis, Isabella sneaks up and taps the unsuspecting girl on the shoulder, startling her. Amaryllis turns around, confused, as Isabella offers an apology for approaching her so suddenly. Isabella cheerfully asks Lady Amaryllis if she would like to have some girl talk with her. A shocked Amaryllis realizes she is speaking to the infamous Lady Isabella, while Isabella introduces herself as Isabella Ali Rottenstein, the third daughter of her family. Isabella dismisses any stories Amaryllis may have heard as nonsense and extends a hand, suggesting they get along since they are the same age. Amaryllis's expression brightens as she accepts Isabella's handshake. She agrees with a happy yes. Isabella, charmed and thinking Amaryllis is as cute as a puppy, decides they should begin their talk without further delay. She leads Amaryllis to a quiet bench where no one can hear them and declares it's time to start their girl talk. Amaryllis feels she has no stories to share, but Isabella insists this is all to help the second prince and that Amaryllis is about to begin her own passionate love story. Isabella leaps to her feet, proclaiming that Lady Amaryllis does have a story, and it begins right now. Confused, Amaryllis asks if they are starting now, and Isabella confirms it, urging her to follow so they can meet an ally for her happy ending, mistaking Amaryllis's expression for one of yearning. Isabella explains that every successful love story needs supporters and extends a hand, formally asking Amaryllis if she would like to have such a story. Amaryllis's eye shows a spark of determination. She grabs Isabella's hand, exclaiming that she would love that. Isabella asks to be called Bella, and Amaryllis happily agrees, requesting in turn to be called Alice. Alice smiles radiantly and accepts the new arrangement. And so the two of them approach a noblewoman, who notices them and inquires as to who the other young lady is. With a curtsy, Bella apologizes for interrupting and introduces both herself and Alice, stating their full names and family ranks. The imposing woman acknowledges Miss Isabella and pointedly asks if she is finished with her sneaking around. Bella is momentarily shocked that her presence obfuscation was seen through but recovers with a smile, confirming she heard everything she needed to. The woman expresses her happiness at seeing so many promising children and states she has high hopes for Bella in particular, causing Bella to panic internally and wish for the attention to stop. She then smiles and asks the girls if they have business with her. Far away, a man peers through a spyglass at the distant landscape. His subordinate points out to the captain that the girl he is watching is Officer Demon's little sister. The captain learns that Miss Isabella is supposed to be at a tea party, and another soldier remarks that it is odd for a duke's daughter to be moving by carriage. Taking the spyglass, the disbelieving captain looks and sees that the duke's daughter is quite literally moving the carriage by pulling it herself. The other knights gather to look, amazed that she is actually doing it, while one asks the captain for orders. The captain snaps at them for standing around and orders them to go and stop the carriage immediately. The squad of knights takes off at a full sprint. Alice praises Bella for her strength, and Bella replies that the carriage is light work, reminding her friend to be careful inside. Just then, the knights arrive and command the person pulling the carriage to stop right there. They stand in stunned silence, trying to process the sight of Lady Isabella pulling a carriage. Isabella turns to them with a brilliant smile and explains that she is merely playing horse with her friend. A weary knight asks who, exactly, she is playing with, and Isabella cheerfully informs him that she is playing with Alice, who is inside the carriage. Bella calls into the carriage, telling Alice that the knights want to confirm she is really inside, and a voice responds that she is coming out. A figure steps out from behind the carriage door to face the knights. Alice presents herself as Amaryllis, the friend Lady Isabella mentioned, as Bella silently encourages her to show the knights her true skill. A blonde-haired individual laments their decision to kidnap the prince to solve his problem, as they have now been caught by knights, while a young girl in a carriage resolves that they must overcome this crisis. The girl with the bow, Isabella, turns her attention to her companion, declaring that now is Alice's time to shine. Alice, a dark-haired girl with flowers in her hair, stands nervously before the knights with the prince partially visible behind her. She timidly steps forward and explains to a knight that their playing pretend with the carriage was approved by both her mother and her majesty, so he shouldn't worry. The knight considers verifying her story with the queen, prompting Alice to flail her arms and frantically insist that isn't necessary. He flinches at her outburst and then notices a moving bag, asking who might be inside it. Alice panics and shouts there is no one in the bag, but Isabella calmly interjects that the person inside is simply playing the role of luggage. The confused knight asks who exactly is playing the luggage role, leading Isabella to smile and clarify that Alice is the only one with a human role in their game. Isabella comforts the anxious Alice, whispering that it was only natural for the knight to ask about the person in the bag. The knight, attempting to understand the situation, allows them to introduce themselves, and Isabella cheerfully states that she is a lady of a ducal house playing the part of the horse. Isabella then gestures dramatically toward her companion, announcing that Alice is the one playing the human role and urging her forward. Alice gathers her courage, takes a deep breath, and meekly introduces herself to the baffled knights as the human. The prince and the lead knight stare in utter confusion, completely bewildered by the girl's explanation. Alice focuses her gaze intensely upon the knights. She unleashes her charm, calling herself Amaryllis and declaring her love for the Big Brother knights, in a move that lands like a critical hit. The knight collapses, clutching his heart from the overwhelming display of cuteness, as Isabella shouts for Alice to hurry so they can make their escape. While panting on the ground, the knight struggles to comprehend what just happened to him. He has a moment of realization, identifying the powerful effect that overcame him as a charm skill. The scene changes to a large house surrounded by trees, the sound of tapping echoing nearby. Inside, a boy with goggles named Ursh hums to himself just as a door opens behind him. Ursh is jolted with surprise upon seeing Isabella, wondering why she is there instead of at the tea party she was supposed to attend. Isabella makes a grand entrance, presenting both Alice and the second prince to him. Ursh initially misreads the situation, thinking they are dead and offering to dig a grave, but Isabella clarifies she had tried pulling their carriage and it was too shaky for them. He admits he jumped to conclusions, while Isabella asks if it's possible for the second prince to learn how to turn his skills off, just as Ursh can. Ursh immediately begins to scold Isabella, calling her too impulsive and questioning why she must always stick her nose into trouble. Isabella passionately defends her actions, insisting she could not ignore the prince's worsening mental state. Ursh calmly tells Isabella to take a moment to calm down and think things through logically. He asks her at what age the game's story begins, and she confirms it is when she is 15. Ursh continues, getting her to confirm that at that point, the second prince is attending the academy and is capable of romance. Isabella points to the prince's status, which indicates a weakened mental state, but Ursh theorizes that he is using a parallel thinking skill to escape the strain of his mind-read skill by letting one part of his mind rest. Ursh adds that the prince's insomnia makes him even more spaced out, and concludes they must first confirm what His Highness himself wants to do next. They acknowledge the difficulty of speaking with him while his mind-read is active. And when Ursh asks for ideas to get his attention, Isabella suggests insulting him. Ursh clarifies that he meant an idea in the form of an item from her inventory, not a verbal strategy. Isabella's expression brightens as she realizes she has just the thing and asks if something like this would work. She proudly produces an item called Tartan's Arrow, explaining that getting struck by it can temporarily seal a skill for up to a week at the prince's current level. Ursh sighs and immediately rejects the plan, stating flatly that with Isabella's strength, shooting the prince with an arrow would kill him. A fist clenches in determination. Alice awakens in a bed, yawning and confused about her location, and is greeted by Isabella. She springs up in alarm, asking where they are and why Isabella is talking about hiking across a mountain. Isabella explains that they failed to find an item to fix the prince's mind, so they brought him to a Schneever Company mountain lodge in an area where no one is below level 4 for 10 kilometers. A tearful Alice can only say, "What?" as she tries to comprehend the drastic situation. The explanation continues. Because the prince is cursed to hear the thoughts of everyone around him, they must go somewhere with no other people if they want to talk to him. A trembling but resolute Alice clenches her fists, declaring that she understands and is ready to cross the mountain. Ursh suggests it might be better to have the prince sleep through the journey, while Isabella muses that this could be an opportunity for Alice and the prince to grow closer. While Ursh asks for sleep medication, Isabella proudly offers a sleeping bomb, an item powerful enough to knock out a demon. Ursh once again rejects Isabella's violent proposal to just deck the prince, warning that it would kill him. Resigned to finding a less lethal solution himself, Ursh instructs Isabella to prepare a carriage. The sound of a horse's hooves clops steadily along a road. In the rattling carriage, a teary Alice asks if the prince is truly just asleep, which Isabella confirms. Ursh remarks that her worry is understandable, given they knocked him out with a blow dart. Ursh adds that of course he wouldn't actually harm a prince, since attempted murder of a royal would have severe consequences. He muses aloud that he didn't want to take care of someone who could have become Isabella's fiancé, causing her to quiver with the thought that he might be jealous. Isabella declares that Ursh is the only one she will ever care for, and he asks her to promise she'll stay with him even when he's a grandpa. They resolve to work hard and solve this problem so they can live a wonderful, relaxed life together in the future. Ursh then casually mentions that he thinks Alice would be a good match for the prince, which causes Isabella to momentarily wilt before perking up. When she asks what he truly cares about, Ursh replies that as long as the prince's fiancée is not Isabella, he doesn't really care, as his own interests are Isabella and alchemy. Overjoyed by his words, Isabella declares her love for Ursh-kun and her desire to know everything about him. Ursh gently offers his hand to her. She takes it, cherishing the fact that the hand once out of reach is now hers to hold, and she silently thanks God for this new life and vows to make the most of it. A man wearing a bandana, Mr. Marcus, calls out from outside, announcing that food is ready and they should eat it while it's hot. Isabella introduces him as Mr. Marcus of the Schneever Company, who was waiting for them upon their late-night arrival, and Alice gives him a timid morning greeting. Isabella approaches Marcus and asks if he has seen Ursh. Marcus informs her that the young master is in the workshop, working on something. It's revealed that Ursh, after only 3 hours of sleep, is modifying the Tartan's arrow to be an equipable accessory that can seal skills. He mutters that he wants to finish it before the prince awakens but worries that his current design is too plain for royalty. Isabella observes how stubborn her fiancé gets when it comes to his work and decides it is time for her finishing move. She approaches him, pouting that it isn't fair for him to make such an elaborate gift for the second prince when she, his own fiancé, has yet to receive a single accessory from him. Ursh smiles and says that since he finished his work early, he will make something for her too, asking what she would like, but Isabella insists he just needs to go to sleep. Meanwhile, Alice enters another room and worriedly asks about the prince's location. Isabella cheerfully informs her that Ursh gave the prince a tranquilizer shot so he is sound asleep, reassuring the shocked Alice that it is perfectly safe. With that matter settled, Isabella turns to Alice with a serious expression and announces it is time for leveling up. Alice begins to sob, saying it's impossible when Isabella commands her to hunt horned rabbits on her own by noon. Isabella explains that because Alice has the lowest level in their group, her affection for the prince will be impossible to hide from his mind-reading skill once he wakes up, a situation she would like to avoid. To make her point, she shows Alice her own status, noting that hunting horned rabbits is a basic task and that options like herb picking are too inefficient for their needs. Alice's status is revealed. Amaryllis Elbrunst, a 7-year-old Harmon with skills like charm, various magic types, and 2 particularly notable abilities, dynamic vision and super acceleration. Isabella expresses her belief that if mastered, super acceleration and dynamic vision could be incredibly powerful skills. Puzzled, Isabella turns to Alice and asks her why she possesses the dynamic vision skill. After Isabella explains that it's the ability to follow moving objects, Alice brightly concludes it must be because of her mother. Alice elaborates that her mother, an expert at embroidery, moves her hands so fast that she had to watch very carefully to follow the movements, which likely led to her developing the skill. Armed with this new knowledge, Isabella pumps her fist in the air and excitedly declares that it is time for them to go leveling. A man named Paul leads the 2 girls to a meadow, stating that this location should be suitable for their purpose. Paul explains he couldn't let 7-year-old ladies venture out alone and that they will start with slime hunting and herb picking before graduating to horned rabbits. He also relays a request from the lodge keeper to pick any white mushrooms they find growing at the base of the trees. Isabella points forward with enthusiasm, rallying Alice to begin mushroom picking. While gathering herbs, Paul compliments Lady Isabella on being quite knowledgeable, to which she proudly replies that she has the appraisal skill just like Ursh. Alice adds that Bella is amazing for having used that skill to discover her own charmy ability, which they then use to escape the castle, prompting Paul to muse that she is indeed like young Master Ursh. Paul then turns to Lady Isabella with a smile and asks if she can see his status as well. Isabella confirms that she can but winks and says she won't reveal it, stating that it is a secret to be kept from those outside the Schneever company. She feels an intense pressure from Paul's silent gaze and inwardly wishes he would stop. Shaking off the feeling, Isabella declares that it is time for them to continue their task. Alice collapses from exhaustion, wailing that she cannot walk anymore, so Isabella hands her a potion. After drinking the potion, Alice feels a surge of energy revitalizing her body. Though recovered, Alice complains that the potion was spicy and tasted bad, calling Bella a demon, but Isabella merely offers encouragement and tells her she can do it. Paul quietly approaches Lady Amaryllis and asks if she is aware that His Highness can hear the thoughts of anyone with a lower level than himself. He chuckles, pointing out that since she has not leveled up, she must understand what will happen when the prince awakens and hears all of her thoughts, including humming and sleep talk. The horrifying implication of his words sinks into Alice's mind. A terrified Alice scrambles to her feet, shouting to Bella that they must leave at once and that she can keep going. Reinvigorated by fear, Alice proclaims she will try her best and charges forward with renewed purpose. She runs with impressive spirit as Paul and Isabella watch from behind. Some time later, Alice is completely exhausted once more, surrounded by empty potion bottles and complaining that her tummy is too full to drink anymore. As they approach the habitat of slimes and horned rabbits, Isabella gives Alice a talisman, explaining that with it, she can easily defeat such low-level monsters. From a heavily pixelated image, Isabella appears to be shouting encouragement, telling Alice she can perform a unilateral massacre. In another blurry frame, Alice seems to be asking how she is supposed to hunt her target even if she manages to catch up to it. A low-quality image shows Isabella asking Alice if she can use her water and wind magic to attack. The pixelated scene suggests someone is shocked by the revelation that Alice can use magic. Isabella seems to have a realization in the fuzzy panel, remembering that children are usually not aware of their own status until after age 10, meaning 7-year-old Alice wouldn't know her own abilities. In a blurry close-up, Alice looks despondent, likely believing it's too late for her to start practicing magic now. The pixelated image shows Isabella thinking there must be some other way to solve this problem. A final, indistinct frame shows a hand reaching out as a character seems to have found the solution they were looking for. Alice expresses shock at being given a weapon, protesting that she has never held anything heavier than tableware, while a blonde girl reassures her it is, in fact, tableware. The blonde girl, Bella, presents Alice with a giant fork, urging her to fight with it. Alice cries out that the fork is too big for her to hold, but Bella insists it's lighter than it looks and that Alice can use it. Bella tricks Alice into holding the heavy fork, apologizing but pointing out that it is indeed lighter than its appearance suggests. With a crying Alice struggling to hold the fork, Bella enthusiastically declares that they are going slime hunting. A group of slimes bounce peacefully in the grass. Bella explains she uses her sense presence skill to find enemies, and the group quickly locates the slimes hiding behind a bush. Bella encourages a nervous Alice to do her best and level up, and Alice steals her resolve to defeat the slimes. The encouragement continues, with Bella telling Alice that she should level up after defeating just a few of them. Bella internally strategizes, recalling that slimes are defeated by destroying their core and that Alice has a poison resistance item for protection. Bella internally remarks on how cute Alice looks as she brandishes the huge fork with a determined glare. Alice lets out a cry and charges forward, startling the slime. The slime, however, suddenly leaps through the air towards a bewildered Alice. The slime latches directly onto Alice's head, muffling her scream. Bella watches in horror as Alice struggles, realizing the slime won't come off and fearing for her friend's life. Bella shouts for Paul to kill the slime immediately but finds herself hesitating when he asks for her command. Paul points out that if he attacks, Alice's head might come off with the slime, prompting Bella to tell him to just hit the core. Bella declares that the slime's acid means nothing to her as she reaches in with her bare hands to crush the core, ignoring warnings that her hands will melt. After the slime is defeated, Bella anxiously checks if Alice is okay, and Alice confirms she's fine with a cough. Bella reflects on her carelessness, admitting she had no idea slimes were so strong. Bella apologizes for putting Alice in danger, admitting she should have done more research, but Alice reassures her that the item Bella gave her prevented her from melting. Bella feels guilty, thinking that she underestimated the world and couldn't do anything to help, realizing Alice would have been lost if not for Paul. Bella laments her struggles against mere slimes despite having so many advantages and underestimating the world. Alice, however, is undeterred and encourages Bella, saying they should learn from their failure and try again more carefully. Reinvigorated, Bella agrees to do whatever it takes to help Alice level up, while Alice asks for restoratives before they continue. Alice is shown downing several potions one after another until the bottles are empty. Bella urges her to keep swallowing, as Alice feels sick from drinking too much. Seeing Alice's discomfort, Bella decides that she has had enough potions and that her health is the top priority. Bella resolves to do her best to ensure Alice can level up efficiently and safely, using her own skills to their fullest. To raise their spirits, Bella initiates a motivational cheer, Disturi, which only confuses Alice. The second slime hunt begins, with the two girls peeking over a bush at a bouncing slime. Bella explains her new strategy, changing her perspective with her pride skill, then using multiple sensory skills to stalk the slime. She then uses her wrath skill to apply pressure on the slime without killing it, telling Alice to get ready. Alice charges in, shouting the Disturi cheer as she successfully beats the slime. They celebrate their success and continue the hunt, crushing one slime after another until only one remains. Alice attacks the final slime with another powerful Disturi shout. Having cleared the area of slimes, Bella wonders where the horned rabbits have gone, noting the absence of their natural predators as well. Bella finds it strange that the horned rabbits would disappear for no reason and decides to use her skills to search more closely for other enemies. She suddenly detects something squirming underground, placing her hand on the ground to confirm. Alice asks what's down there, and Bella leans in, concentrating to get a better look. Bella reports her findings with alarm. A whole swarm of 3 train-sized earthworms and their offspring are underground. Paul suggests they retreat and report the worms to the Adventurers Guild, but Bella tells him they can't as the creatures begin to surface. Bella grabs Alice and tells her to run while warning Paul to be careful as the ground cracks beneath them. A giant worm erupts from the ground just as they dash out of the way. 2 massive worms now squirm on the surface, and Bella realizes they narrowly avoided being swallowed whole. With it being too late to call for help, Bella concludes that they have no choice but to fight. Paul questions how they can fight such large monsters, especially with their babies also surfacing, and Bella wishes they could just stop them from moving. The thought of immobilizing the worms gives Bella an idea, remembering an item she never got to use. Bella summons a pile of sleeping bombs from her closet skill and tells a surprised Alice to throw them at the worms. Alice hesitates, recognizing the bombs as dangerous weapons, but Bella urges her on, saying it's fine since they are outdoors. Alice hurls the sleeping bombs toward the giant worms. The bombs explode in a cloud of sleep-inducing powder. The gas spreads, forcing Bella and Alice to cover their mouths as the worms fall asleep. Alice asks if the worms will move anymore, and Bella confirms they are just sleeping. Alice asks if these new items will beat the worms, but Bella reminds her the goal is for Alice to level up, so the bombs will only stop them from moving. Bella outlines the next phase of the plan. She will beat the sleeping worms until they are almost dead, and Alice will deliver the final hit, handing her goggles and 200 bombs. Bella then pulls out another item from her gacha, revealing it to be part of a matching set with the giant fork. It is a giant knife, and together with Alice holding the fork, they shout their Disturi cheer, ready to carve up the sleeping worms. Alice stands ready with a giant fork, prompting Isabella to ponder what her own corresponding utensil should be. With a flourish, Isabella reveals her choice, a massive knife, held with a confident smile. She announces her intention to exterminate worms, a task that will also serve to level up Alice. A narrative caption explains that for a proper lady, knowing how to handle a knife and fork is simply expected. A man named Marcus finishes his chores and decides to find someone named Paul, but he stops when he hears approaching footsteps. He is startled by the appearance of young Master Ursh, who asks why Marcus isn't resting. Marcus explains he was put to sleep and correctly guesses it was Isabella's doing. Marcus bitterly recalls how Isabella shot him with a tranquilizer just because he refused to take a break, while Ursh offers an apology on her behalf. Laughing, Marcus dismisses the incident, saying it's just the sort of thing Isabella would do. Marcus mentions that Isabella was worried about him, but Ursh reveals the tranquilizer was actually helpful, as he has a skill called Null Status Ailment. Ursh further explains that the tranquilizer caused his poison resistance sub-skill to evolve into the more powerful poison nullification, leaving Marcus speechless. Showing off a simple ring, Ursh explains it's a magic item he created that allows the wearer to see their own skills without needing the analyze ability. He then clarifies that he personally doesn't need the item anymore, as his own magic now lets him view his status directly. Ursh elaborates that this new power will allow him to cover for Isabella if she ever uses her abilities in front of others by mistake. He is resolute in his goal to protect Isabella's peaceful life, knowing the chaos that would ensue if her rare skills were discovered. Ursh's question about chores snaps Marcus back to the matter at hand, reminding him why he was out in the first place. Marcus explains the ladies went to hunt horned rabbits to level up but are taking too long, so he was going to investigate, prompting Ursh to guess they encountered worms. When Marcus asks for clarification about creatures resembling a mix of earthworms and leeches, Ursh confirms his suspicion, adding that they surface from underground to find food. Ursh elaborates that worm sightings have increased lately according to merchant guild peddlers, likely because the warmer weather has triggered their breeding season. Marcus learns this is a rare event that only occurs every few decades, and the gravity of the situation dawns on him. He grows deeply concerned, realizing the worms prey on dog-sized horned rabbits and that 2 young girls would be in grave danger. The scene abruptly shifts to the violent light and sound of a massive explosion ripping through the landscape. As Paul looks on at the troublesome worm swarm, Isabella yells for Alice to leave it to her, triggering a powerful blast. The aftermath reveals a field littered with the carcasses of defeated worms. Isabella checks with Alice about their remaining supply of bombs, and Alice confidently confirms they are still well stocked. Pleased, Isabella thinks about how her plan is succeeding, having equipped Alice with a variety of bomb items for this very purpose. The strategy involved Alice planting remote-controlled landmines across the area while Isabella acted as a decoy. As Isabella fought off the worms that appeared, she collected their magic cores. Once the worms were gathered, Isabella gave the signal for Alice to detonate the mines and annihilate the swarm. While fighting, Isabella finds the effort of cutting through giant worms exhausting and wishes she could use her swordsman skill to perform slash. With renewed determination, she closes her eyes and decides to attempt the skill. She concentrates, recalling the motions from the game, gathering her power and shifting into the proper stance. With a powerful swing, she successfully unleashes the slash attack, cleaving through a giant worm. She celebrates her success as valuable magic cores rain down from the vanquished monsters. As she readies herself to continue, the ground beneath her begins to tremble and crack violently. The earth splits open, and from the newly formed chasm, countless worms begin to wiggle their way to the surface. Startled by the sudden eruption of monsters, Isabella shouts for Alice to retreat with her. Alice cries out in fear at the horde of worms emerging from the crack, and Isabella instructs her to activate the remaining landmines as they flee. With a shout to destroy them, Alice presses the button, unleashing a final, devastating series of explosions. Though the blast didn't eradicate every single worm, Isabella is left in awe of the sheer destructive power of bombs. Just as Alice excitedly declares her desire for more explosions to defeat the remaining worms, Ursh and Marcus arrive, having rushed to the scene. Paul also arrives, staring in disbelief at the cratered, apocalyptic wasteland and asking what could have possibly happened. Undisturbed by the destruction, Isabella and Alice joyfully celebrate their large harvest of magic stones from the battle. Marcus confronts Isabella about the chaos, while Alice jumps with excitement about using the stones to make more bombs. Isabella explains that the situation escalated because Alice developed a fondness for bombs, and Alice complains that they still lack enough magic stones for her plans. With a sigh, Marcus tells the girls to return to the hut so he can clean up the mess, as Isabella muses that Alice is well on her way to earning the title, Destroyer. Paul accompanies the girls as they walk away, advising them to be careful on their way back. During the walk, Isabella notices a troubled expression on Alice's face and asks her what is wrong. Alice anxiously says she wants to confirm if her level has increased before they return to the hut. She insists she must hunt more if her level is still below that of His Highness, but Isabella assures her it's fine and that she was planning to check her status back at the hut. Realizing Alice won't be able to relax without knowing for sure, Isabella agrees to find a spot for them to rest so she can check her status. With Paul standing guard, the girls sit on a stump, and Isabella asks Alice if she is ready for the status check. Isabella begins to focus, concentrating on reading Alice's new stats. Her eyes widen in shock as the information becomes clear to her. She shouts that they have over-leveled, realizing with horror that the prince now stands no physical chance against Alice. Isabella panics as she reviews Alice's new status, which now includes the skill explosion magic, the job destruction engineer, and the ominous title Mad Bomber. She notes that Alice's health and level are now comparable to a seasoned adventurer, and her use of a giant fork has even unlocked the spearman job. Isabella informs a very relieved Alice that she has definitely leveled up enough. As Alice celebrates, Isabella grows worried, realizing she may have planted a flag by thinking the prince would be safe as long as he didn't join the knights and fight on the front lines. An exterior shot shows the quiet wooden hut in the forest. Inside, Ursh greets Isabella and Lady Amaryllis, welcoming them back. The girls announce that their leveling expedition is complete, and Ursh expresses his approval. Ursh then leans in and quietly informs Isabella that the second prince has awakened. The prince, Christopher, pauses mid-bite while eating at a table. Isabella and Alice cautiously peer into the room, where Isabella observes that the prince doesn't appear to be smiling. A hand reaches out, startling Alice. Prince Christopher offers a small wave and a shy greeting, welcoming them back. The entire group is stunned into silence by the fact that he spoke. Ursh quickly diffuses the tension, ushering the girls to calm down and have a seat. He presents Alice with one of the rings he made, explaining that it will allow her to see her own status. He gives another ring to Isabella, instructing her to wear it even though she may not need it. Ursh then turns the conversation to the prince, explaining that he now wishes to train to properly control his unique skill. The prince himself declares his new goal, to become a knight of justice and protect the capital. The announcement sends a shockwave of disbelief through Isabella and Alice. Ursh, however, seems delighted by the news, cheerfully telling Amaryllis that this means she'll need to continue leveling up to keep pace. Isabella mentally recoils, apologizing to Alice as she realizes her casual thought from earlier has manifested into a real and troublesome development. Alice, flinching at the thought of more leveling, asks the prince to explain why he wants to be a knight of justice. The prince reveals that for a long time, he has been hearing voices that no one else can, voices calling out for help. He describes the voices as varied, sometimes happy children, but more often the sounds of people crying in the night. His expression is somber as he reflects on this burden. He explains that he used to tell the guards, but they dismissed his claims as hallucinations, causing him to doubt his own sanity. Feeling isolated, he eventually stopped telling anyone about the voices and closed himself off from others. Ursh picks up the story, explaining that the events of the day helped the prince realize that the voices are a real phenomenon caused by his skill. The prince, with newfound conviction, states that if the voices aren't hallucinations, then people are truly in danger and need help. He concludes that since he is the only one who can hear them, it is his duty to save them. Ursh summarizes the prince's motivation. After years of being unable to help, he is now determined to at least protect the people within the capital. Isabella listens to the heavy story with a serious expression. She immediately becomes flustered, admitting to herself that she is terrible at handling such serious and emotional situations. Ursh observes that the prince possesses the good and just heart of a true hero. Inspired, Alice slams her hands on the table and proclaims that she too will become an ally of justice, startling the prince. While Alice declares her intent to help His Highness, Isabella panics internally, thinking that the Mad Bomber is more suited for the dark side than for justice. The prince smiles, grateful to have a comrade, which only makes Isabella more frantic, but then she is asked for her own commitment. Ursh smoothly intervenes, announcing that Isabella will be marrying him to become a world-traveling merchant, making it difficult for her to commit to protecting the capital. Alice is thrilled by the grand image of Bella causing rumors and commotions around the world, even as Isabella insists she wants to be an ordinary merchant. Changing the subject, Ursh asks the prince about his training plans before he can officially join the knights at age 10, suggesting Her Majesty the Queen could train him. The prince seems uncertain about his swordsmanship instructor and the involvement of his mother. Ursh points out a key fact that might influence his decision. The Queen is secretly an A-rank adventurer. Both Prince Christopher and Alice stare back, their faces frozen in utter shock at the revelation. They both let out a unified, elongated cry of disbelief. A young prince questions his mother's sudden involvement in his training, having expected his swordsmanship instructor instead, while a young girl beside him quietly affirms his confusion. The reason for this change is revealed with startling clarity. The prince's mother is, in fact, an A-rank adventurer, a revelation that leaves the young royal completely stunned. He remains dumbstruck by the news, his mind reeling as an image of a powerful, battle-ready woman, his mother, flashes through his thoughts. The prince sits alone in quiet contemplation, processing the heavy weight of this new identity for the mother he thought he knew. Elsewhere, a dark-haired girl asks another named Alice how she knew about the Queen's secret, prompting Alice to recall their encounter during a tea party where they had kidnapped the prince, though she admits the adult conversation was too complex for her to follow closely. The dark-haired girl pieces together fragments she overheard, remembering phrases like errant adventurer, thief, and crimson persona being mentioned in relation to the Queen. A flashback to the tea party shows the moment someone explained to Her Majesty that the second prince's supposed curse was actually his own skill running out of control. That skill, if left untrained, would eventually cause the prince's mind to break, but the Queen had her doubts because her own powerful analyze ability had been repelled when she attempted to use it on her son. The speaker then suggested the Queen use analyze on him instead. Its failure would still prove his unique status, just like the prince's, and after it did fail, the Queen requested to see his skills directly to confirm his ability to read her son's condition. The results of this analysis revealed the full status of Queen Mercedes Vega Rosreal, a level 52 A-rank adventurer also known as the Crimson Persona, and the leader of the Persona Knights, possessing a wide array of job skills including thief and swordsman. The conversation turns to the Queen's past as an adventurer, linking her history to her family's origins in Lambert County, a territory that also contains the nation's largest dungeon. Within the dungeons of the Lambert domain, a phenomenon known as the Monster Tempest frequently causes a massive overflow of monsters, a threat that the House of Lambert and its 5 subordinate families are tasked with suppressing. The House of Lambert's role on the front lines meant it commanded numerous powerful adventurers, giving them enough strength to potentially overthrow the country, which led the royal family to secure an alliance through marriage to Her Majesty. It is further revealed that the Queen continues her adventurer work in secret, disguised as a man, though her distinctive rose-gold hair, a trait of the House of Lambert, makes her identity somewhat obvious. The prince absorbs this flood of information, coming to the quiet realization that his mother is a far more formidable figure than he ever imagined. He feels a sense of loss over his ignorance, but another child remarks that it's understandable, given they are all merely 7 years old. A girl with blonde pigtails speculates that this must be why the prince is now set to receive training directly from Her Majesty. Their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of a guest for Lady Isabella, who turns out to be her maid, Marie, greeting her after a long separation. Marie explains that Her Majesty sent her because the prince's current location is top secret and Lady Isabella is officially recorded as being elsewhere, making a trusted aid necessary. With a deep bow, Marie apologizes for being the only servant available to attend to her lady, while Isabella quickly expresses her own regret for causing such trouble. Isabella immediately asks for news from the palace, and Marie recounts the chaos that erupted after their departure. Master Geiss was kidnapped, and the leader of the Imperial soldiers witnessed a suspicious maid carrying a large bundle from a back entrance. The soldier gave chase when the maid fled, quickly apprehending her and discovering the missing Lord Geiss concealed within her bag. Just as the maid was about to be interrogated for the blatant kidnapping attempt, she violently coughed up blood and died on the spot. Isabella listens with a knowing, weary expression, confirming to herself that the events transpired exactly as she anticipated before letting out a soft sigh. Marie, bewildered, demands to know how her lady could possibly be aware of these details, while Isabella internally identifies the incident as the Geiss kidnapping event from the game Love Magical. She mentally reviews the situation, noting that while the event occurred, the timing and location are different from the game, where it was supposed to happen at a party hosted by Earl Underwood, home of capture target Brian. In the original story, Geiss was meant to be abducted by the Color Collector, and his subsequent escape would have exposed the villain's plot involving other kidnapped children. As Marie presses her for information, Isabella struggles with how to explain her foreknowledge of the kidnapping plot. Before she can answer, a boy named Ursh leans in, eagerly stating that he would also love to hear every detail, startling Isabella with his sudden interest. The scene transitions away from the tense conversation to a quiet, open field bordered by a dense line of trees. An intense training session is underway as Isabella swiftly dodges a volley of arrows raining down from above. The archer is Prince Christopher, who is being praised for his rapid adjustment to the bow. A quick flashback reveals that Isabella had already informed Ursh about the threat of the Color Collector. This self-defense training was established because the Color Collector, a criminal known for abducting 12 children with distinct hair colors, is also targeting Ursh and Alice. The prince is learning archery at Ursh's suggestion, as the focus required mirrors the control needed for his innate skill, and to mitigate the training's danger, 5 resurrection items were prepared as a safeguard. The prince notes grimly that only 3 of these resurrection items remain, a stark reminder of the perils of their practice. Indeed, His Highness has already perished twice, both times as a result of being caught in an explosion during Alice's part of the training. The first death was an accident, caused by Ursh running blindly and bumping the prince into an explosion's path, while the second was also due to being hit hard by a blast. However, Isabella feels something was strangely deliberate about Ursh's movements during that first incident. In the present, a massive rock hurtles directly toward the prince, and a frantic voice cries out a warning. With focused eyes and a decisive step, a figure moves to intercept the threat. The prince reacts with surprising agility, twisting his body to evade the deadly projectile. He fluidly transitions from the dodge into an attack, drawing his bow and taking aim at the new target. His arrow flies true, striking the airborne rock and shattering it into harmless fragments. Isabella observes his progress, acknowledging the necessity of him learning the bow to counter the color collector but finding his rate of improvement almost unnaturally fast. Days later, the prince announces his imminent return to the royal capital, explaining that his mother is personally coming to retrieve him. The reason for his departure is the kidnapping of Geiss, which took place at a tea party hosted by the House of Underwood, an event Isabella finds baffling since its advanced scheduling should have put Geiss on his guard. With this development, Isabella realizes the story's plot is now back on its original course and resolves that they must all prepare for a return to the royal capital as well. Ursh turns his attention to Isabella and Alice, ready to move forward with the new plan. A stately carriage arrives to collect the prince, its driver formally thanking the children for their care. The queen invites the others to join them, but Isabella politely refuses on their behalf, stating her need to privately discuss the recent events with Ursh. As they part ways, Ursh praises the prince's improved control and encourages him to continue his efforts, while Isabella offers a simple, hopeful farewell. The prince looks downcast and asks why they insist on formally addressing him as second prince. He confesses that their distant manner of speaking makes him feel lonely, despite his desire to be true friends with them. Both Isabella and Ursh internally agree that they cannot be more familiar. Isabella fears that getting too close to a game capture target could lead to an unwanted engagement. Visibly hurt, the prince suggests the formal but slightly less distant Prince Christopher as an alternative. He expresses a simple wish for a nickname like Alice has, but Ursh maintains that as a commoner he cannot be so casual, and Isabella adds that as his fiancée, she is also bound by propriety with other men. The queen intervenes, gently chiding her son for being pushy with his first real friends before thanking the children and promising the full support of the royal family should they ever need it. With a final good day, the royal carriage pulls away, leaving the others behind. Just as their own carriage is readied, a man approaches Isabella and Ursh, confirming their presence before they depart. Now inside their carriage, Isabella turns to Ursh and brings up the subject of the prince's 2 deaths during their training. She looks him in the eye and asks him directly if he intentionally bumped into Prince Chris that first time. After a moment of feigned confusion, Ursh concedes that it was indeed forceful, as Isabella presses that the chain of coincidences leading to the prince's death was too strange to be an accident. Leaning close, Ursh whispers the shocking truth. It was absolutely necessary for His Highness to die. A baffled Isabella demands to know why such a drastic measure was needed. Ursh explains that simply learning to control the skill wouldn't fix the underlying problem, reminding her that the prince's skill itself transformed after he was revived. Isabella is aghast that they would risk the prince's life on a gambit with no guarantee of success, but Ursh assures her it was a calculated goal undertaken with the prince's full consent and his last was secured as a precaution. Overwhelmed by the complexity of the situation, Isabella asks for a chronological explanation, and Ursh startles her by stating their story must begin 800 years ago, with the founding of the country. He reveals he has been investigating information from an unnamed man about skills known as Shard of Vice King, which, like the prince's Ears of Lucifer, are created when an external factor is embedded or affixed to an existing skill. These effects are tied to specific bloodlines, activating the skill as if hardwired into their very being, and when Isabella asks for his source, he cannot yet tell her. Ursh continues, stating that the abilities extracted from these Shard of Vice King's skills are what Isabella knows as the magic eyes of the 7 deadly sins. Isabella connects the dots, realizing that this mysterious person must have sought out individuals with Shard of Vice King's skills in order to extract these magic eyes. Ursh confirms her theory, delivering the final, unbelievable piece of the puzzle. That same man then traveled to Isabella's previous life and embedded all 7 of the extracted skills into her soul. The weight of this revelation leaves Isabella utterly speechless and wide-eyed with shock. Her mind races to process the fact that her cheat reincarnation was deliberately orchestrated by someone who implanted her skills in a past life, and she asks why she was chosen. Ursh explains her soul was simply compatible with all 7. He elaborates that most people can only handle a limit of 3 such skills, which made her a unique and successful test subject for this man's experiment. Isabella recoils at the term test subject, but Ursh, while admitting his hatred for the man, confesses his gratitude because those actions led to him meeting the person she is today. He then steers the conversation back to the main point. There is a specific procedure required to embed the magic eyes of the 7 deadly sins. As Isabella questions the term, Ursh soberly confirms that what they did was follow that exact procedure. He explains that they needed to replicate the circumstances of her own reincarnation. Just as she died and was reborn with new powers, Prince Chris had to die once to trigger the same phenomenon. Ursh admits his own limitations, stating he could never fully replicate what that man accomplished, and recalls how the prince awoke in the middle of his attempt to extract the skill. Upon learning that Ears of Lucifer was the source of his tormenting hallucinations, the prince broke down in tears and begged Ursh for help. The prince declared his wish to end the cycle of suffering for his descendants, pleading with Ursh to create a permanent solution, no matter how risky the method. In that moment, the prince believed that someone unwilling to take such a risk could never truly save anyone, and he saw this as the only way to solve the problem at its very foundation. Ursh adds that even if the prince mastered his current skill, future generations might not be able to, and the ability would once again be mistaken for a curse if its true nature wasn't properly passed down. The plan was therefore to have the prince die while holding the extracted magic eyes, which would then embed into his soul. This would cause his Ears of Lucifer to combine with them and evolve into a more stable Vice King skill. Shifting topics, Ursh asks Isabella if she regularly checks her own skills, to which she replies that she does not, feeling no need to since her level is already maxed out. She also confesses she was avoiding looking in case her career had changed into something even stranger, leading Ursh to sigh that this is why she failed to notice her pride skill had vanished entirely. A status screen for Isabella Ali Rottenstein is displayed, showing her job skills and a list of special skills that includes Greed King, Envy, Lust, and notably, Clairvoyance. Ursh explains that her pride skill was replaced by Clairvoyance because Prince Chris, upon his death and rebirth, acquired the Pride King skill for himself. Prince Christopher's own status screen confirms this, showing that his Ears of Lucifer has evolved into Lucifer, Pride King, and that he has gained the title of Resurrector. Ursh reflects that at the time, he misinterpreted the changes as mere system bugs, failing to grasp that the prince's original skill had evolved into Pride King. He feels a deep unease, remembering that Isabella first acquired her Greed King skill because he instructed her to use her Envy to copy his own Eyes of Mammon. He makes a silent, internal apology to Isabella, resolving that he must now go all out to achieve his goal. Standing alone with his thoughts, Ursh hardens his resolve, fully committed to stopping the future that was foretold by that man at any cost. A young boy feels the heavy weight of responsibility, believing it is his fault that Isabella's skill has changed. With newfound determination, he resolves to go all out from this moment forward to prevent the foretold future of another man. That man is Ursh Schnever, the second son of a merchant in the Rosreal Kingdom, a man who pursued a love for alchemy and coin. In his study of alchemy, this other Ursh was particularly obsessed with creating weapons of mass destruction, inventing countless devices for widespread devastation. He was driven by an obsession for the weapons he created and the great wealth he earned from them. His creations led to terrible wars that laid waste to 3 countries and reshaped the very continents, flattening 5 mountain ranges. Over time, his destructive pursuits earned him the title of the Great Sage of Calamity. The ultimate goal he fervently chased was the creation of a living weapon of mass destruction known as the Demon King. He gathered all the necessary base elements for its creation, but his research ran into a significant problem. He discovered that even when he implanted the base elements into test subjects, they would not stabilize unless the person was inherently suitable for them. The crux of the issue was that the elements had to be embedded into a soul before it was born into the world, a process whose timeline would exceed his own life, and embedding them after incarnation was pointless. He therefore expanded his search for a suitable candidate, looking through all the people he had ever met in his past. The one he finally found was someone he was destined to meet while studying at the Magic Academy. This perfect candidate was Isabella Ali Rottenstein, the daughter of a duke. He formulated a plan to embed the base elements of a demon king, the 7 deadly sins, into her soul before she was born as Isabella, convinced her soul could be forged into his ultimate weapon. In his laboratory, the alchemist smiled, satisfied that his preparations were complete. A brilliant flash of light signified the completion of his work. He decided he needed to add a message to the modified soul so that his future self would remember the plan upon meeting her. He bid the soul farewell, promising to see it in the other world. He then left a final instruction for his other self in the parallel world, telling him to do his best to create the Demon King. The younger Ursh now understands the man's plan. His parallel self intends to travel to this world to retrieve his creation. He is consumed by the thought of what will happen when Isabella learns the truth of her existence. He worries that she will no longer show him kindness once she knows his other self used her as a test subject to create a Demon King. His internal turmoil is interrupted by Isabella, who calls his name with concern, asking what he is thinking about. Startled, Ursh quickly reassures her that everything is okay. Isabella smiles gently, mentioning that her status is glitched as usual but that he shouldn't work himself up over it. She reaches out to him, offering to listen to anything he has to say, but he suddenly lunges forward. Ursh pulls her into a tight embrace. A completely flustered Isabella struggles to process that she is being hugged, as Ursh whispers an apology. He confesses that her strange status is his fault and that while he doesn't know how it affects her, he is sure it can't be good. He continues to apologize profusely while Isabella's heart pounds so hard she can barely hear his words. Pushing him back slightly, she insists it is not his fault and immediately forgives him for his unnecessary apology. Ursh looks away, admitting that there are still things he has not told her. He confesses that he lacks the resolve to say more and apologizes to her once again. Isabella gazes at him, her expression soft with concern as she murmurs his name. She senses there is more he can't say, but she feels it is not his fault and decides it is okay. Cupping his face, she tells him she will wait until he is ready to talk. She promises that she will probably forgive him for whatever it is and tells him not to be so hard on himself. Visibly moved, Ursh thanks her and leans his head against her shoulder. He reveals what little he can, explaining that man is trying to use her as a test subject to create something. Isabella is aghast when he specifies that the creation is not merely inhuman, but a demon king. She expresses immense relief and thanks Ursh for stopping him. Internally, Ursh seethes with hatred for that man, clenching his fists at the thought of anyone making his Isabella a test subject. He looks at her with fierce protectiveness and swears he will never let that man turn her into a demon king. Isabella gently touches his clenched fist, thinking that she and her future husband are of the same mind, and that she has no intention of becoming a demon king. She smiles, declaring that the only thing she will ever become is Ursh's bride. With a gentle voice, she tells him not to worry. Ursh agrees with her, his thoughts turning to his parallel world self. He silently informs his counterpart that the plan is already failing. He is not at the Magic Academy and has no interest in weapons of mass destruction. He thinks that he is unlikely to develop such an interest anytime soon, which is a pity for the other's ambitions. He knows that the only thing he is interested in cherishing right now is his beautiful fiancée, Isabella. He reflects that the kind Isabella he knows may be a result of his other self's influence on her past life, and for that, he is grateful. He pities his parallel self, not knowing what one thing the man chose to obsess over but suspecting it was nothing special. He is certain that Isabella will become his bride and has no intention of ever becoming a demon king. He makes a firm declaration in his mind. Isabella is his, not his counterpart's. Hearing her name, Isabella looks up at him and smiles brightly. A stark contrast is shown. The parallel Ursh's cherished one thing was a treasure chest overflowing with gold and jewels. The story of Ursh Schneever, the second son of the Schneever Company, comes into focus. A quiet moment of reflection passes. Ursh and Isabella are seen from behind, sitting closely together in peaceful silence. A final bonus illustration depicts a cheerful girl with tiger ears and a striped outfit, striking a pose.